Study Circle, Rohini CP Study Circle, Shalimar CP Study Circle, and Surat branch. I welcome all of you on this budget talk 2020-22, and we are really fortunate to have with us our star speaker as usual. And also we will be starting by Ainash Gupta ji, the chairman NIRC, and Dr. Ravi Gupta ji. And in the meantime, Shri Giri Choda ji will also be joining. And I think it's really our yearly ritual to have Dr. Giri Choda to explain the clause by clause analysis of the budget, and we are really fortunate to have him here, and he will be joining soon. And in case now, since we're waiting for Mr. Ainash Gupta, CA Ainash Gupta ji, I think if someone has to share the views of the budget, the highlights, key highlights, I mean, I put this house open so that before the dignitaries join in, we can just start with the key highlights of the budget. If everyone wants to share their views, they are please most welcome. Go ahead.
Vipin, before we start that,
yes sir, yes please.
Rajesh, Vipin, Rajesh, welcome to.
सर वो KM अग्रवाल जी हमारे फॉर्मर प्रेसिडेंट हैं, पहले एक मिनट उनसे बुलवा लो.
उन्हीं को बुलवा रहा हूं मैं.
हाँ सर.
मैं वही कहना चाह रहा था कि हमारे we are lucky to have Mr. KM Agarwal, former president of the institute, amongst us. He, in fact, he was the president maybe around more than 30 years back, or around 40 years back, nearly around 40 years back, somewhere around 80s he became the president. So such a senior person we have. Let us have his views to start off, and we welcome him. And I would also like to welcome, besides this, this is the first, probably one of the occasions when we have outstation CA branches joining us. Surat branch has joined, and along with the Surat branch, we also have All India Federation of Tax Practitioners West Zone has joined. We have the Vice President of West Zone, Mr. Santosh Gupta, as well as the Chairman of AFPB West Zone, Mitesh Modi, who are with us. We welcome them to this today's program. And maybe, yes, we can start with Mr. KM Agarwal's address.
Thank you, Anil Bhai. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
yes,
sure,
sir, yes, sir.
Rajesh Bhai, Anil Bhai, and others. It is indeed my pleasure to be here this evening. Really, I am here to listen, not to speak. So I would like to wish you all the best in your endeavors, and whenever I get time, I like to see your programs. Thank you. And what I would like to say, that the budget is in a very progressive way, and it is very short, sweet, and to the point. And other details would be discussed, and I would like to listen. Thank you, Anil ji.
Thank you. So, who should conduct? Rajesh, who should conduct? Vipin will conduct. You conduct.
नवीन जी, मेरे को लगता है अविनाश जी ने ज्वाइन कर लिया है. और
ठीक है सर.
आप नवीन जी को बोल दें जब तक कि नवीन जी उनको इंट्रोड्यूस कर देंगे.
Well, friends, we have Mr. Naveen Jain, the chairman of the Surat branch of ICAI. They have also joined. I request him to kindly introduce Mr. Ainash Gupta, who is again from North Zone. So over to Naveen Jain.
Thank you, Sunil sir. Thank you so much for your kind invitation, sir. I am very much privileged to be over here, and within the next day of the budget, it is very much more privileged to hear the eminent speakers over here, CA Giri Sahuja sir and our chairman of NIRC, CA Ainash Gupta ji over here. So being an representative from Surat, even so many members from our city has also been joined in this session, and I am really thankful CA Mitesh Modi sir also, who has taken me on site for this program and wonderful opportunity given to me. I welcome CA Ainash Gupta sir, currently Chairman of NIRC, Northeastern Region of ICAI. Let me introduce him with a brief details. He is a member of Institute of Chartered Accountant of India. Beside it, he is also graduated from Sri Ram College of Commerce and awarded one of the best student at his time at the college. He was also in the merit of the list. Apart from that, he's also a law graduate and did his LLM in international taxation from Vienna, Europe. In Vienna University, Austria, Europe. He has also authorized 3 more books in international taxation and transfer pricing. He has been elected as NIS in the Institute of Chartered Accountant of India during the term 19 to 22. He is also a president in Tax Research Foundation, an NGO doing research in the field of taxation. He has been nominated as YIN India representative for a period of 2 years for International Fiscal Association India branch. It's a Netherlands-based body. He is a partner in APT and Company LLP, chartered accountant, having a head office at Delhi and 18 branches all over India. He has delivered more than 900 lectures at national and international level. He is a visiting faculty at National Academy of Direct Tax, Nagpur, DT, RTI, Serum College of Commerce, ICI, and very other forums. So let me introduce our today's speaker, C. Ainash Gupta sir, also having a wonderful background in international taxation and transfer pricing. Handing over to you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I also welcome our Central Council member nominated by Government of India, Ravi Gupta ji, our another speaker with Ainash Gupta ji, and over to Ainash Gupta ji.
Thank you, Rajesh ji. Due to some medical emergency, Dr. Ahuja has to go to the hospital and he has to cancel all the programs. That's why Dr. Ravi Gupta ji is with us, and he will take us through on the amendments in the budget. So before that, our respected and honorable past president of the institute, K.M. Agarwal sir, is here. So and other people which I can see. Vipin Verma ji is there from Shalimar Bagh Study Circle. Vipul Mata ji is there from Rohini Study Circle. Rajiv Kohli ji is there. Sunil Dhamija ji is there. And I think the most beneficial person out of this budget is the Surat people. So we have the Surat branch chairman Naveen Jain ji and Mitesh Modi ji from Surat, who is one who get the maximum from this budget in the form of reduction in price of diamonds. So it's from the city of diamond, they are here. So with this, I hand over it to Ravi Gupta ji first, and sir will enlighten us on the various provisions, and then I will address it.
मैं गुप्ता जी, अविनाश जी एक बात बता दूं, मेरी आहूजा जी से बात हुई है. गुरुजी ने कहा है कि सर्टेनली मैं थोड़े टाइम के लिए जरूर ज्वाइन करूंगा 5:15 के आसपास, तो वो कभी भी फ्री होकर के ज्वाइन करेंगे हमको.
नहीं, कोई बात नहीं सर. आई थिंक सर इज नॉट इन अ स्टेट ऑफ माइंड कि
जी सर, जी सर.
तो
अगर वो ज्वाइन करेंगे तो विल डेफिनेटली हैव हिज ब्लेसिंग्स. इट विल बी
सर
ज्वाइन करेंगे.
जी.
बट इन हिज एब्सेंस लेट अस ट्राई टू मेक द बेस्ट ऑफ द सिचुएशन.
सर
जो भी हम लोग कर पाएंगे वी विल ट्राई टू मैनेज दैट इन दिस सेशन. सीए नवीन जैन जी, चेयरमैन सूरत ब्रांच. सीए राजेश अग्रवाल जी, respected KM Agarwal ji, my very old association with him, and I highly respect him. All the senior members from the profession. Well, maybe because of an unfortunate incident, but yes, we have got this chance to speak to you today. And we are here as a substitute speaker. To substitute a speaker like Dr. Girish Ahuja ji is a very difficult task. And I know that all of you will appreciate that our problem today. Had I been an original speaker, your expectations would not have been that high. But when you are willing to listen to Dr. Girish Ahuja ji and you find some other speaker, then I know that there will be a certain element of disappointment. But yes, nevertheless, we will try to make up the situation. Let me start with a small story on a substitute speaker. I'll tell you how is the position of the substitute speaker very difficult. एक आपने सुना होगा एक आइंस्टाइन के बारे में, जो एक बड़े माने हुए साइंटिस्ट थे. उस साइंटिस्ट साहब ने एक नया फॉर्मूला डेवलप करा और उसको एक्सप्लेन करने के लिए वो बहुत जगह जाकर लेक्चर दिया करते थे. जैसे हमारे आइंस्टाइन साहब दिल्ली में क्या ऑल ओवर इंडिया में सारे में जाकर इनकम टैक्स एक्ट समझाते हैं, वैसे आइंस्टाइन साहब अपना फॉर्मूला समझाते. अब एक उनके ड्राइवर भी थे जो हर जगह उनके साथ जाते थे, और आइंस्टाइन साहब ने उसको कह रखा था कि बाहर बहुत गर्मी होती है, तुम अंदर आके हॉल में बैठ जाया करो. तो द ड्राइवर यूज्ड टू लिसन टू द लेक्चर एंड ही लिसन टू द लेक्चर वो 20 टाइम्स 25 टाइम्स, और उसको लगा कि अब तो ये लेक्चर मैं भी दे सकता हूँ. तो एक बारी लेक्चर में आइंस्टाइन साहब थके हुए थे, उन्होंने अपना कोट उसको पहना दिया और उसको कहा भाई आज तू ही लेक्चर दे दे, मैं सुनूंगा पीछे बैठ के। अब उसने 20-25 बारी वो दे चुका था, सुन चुका था लेक्चर, तो उसने बड़े आराम से पूरा लेक्चर दोहरा दिया। कुछ नॉर्मल क्वेश्चन आंसर्स का सेशन आया, जो नॉर्मल क्वेश्चन आंसर्स थे वो भी आंसर कर दिए। जब गुगली शुरू हुई, जब डिफिकल्ट क्वेश्चन शुरू हुए जो उसने नहीं सुने थे, अब इंटेलिजेंट आदमी था तो ड्राइवर, पर वो कहता देखिए आपके क्वेश्चंस बड़े सिंपल हैं, ये क्वेश्चंस का आंसर तो मेरे ड्राइवर साहब भी दे सकते हैं। तो जो पीछे आइंस्टाइन साहब बैठे थे उनको बुला लिया स्टेज पर और उनसे आंसर करवा दिया। तो अब सब्स्टिट्यूट स्पीकर की यही एक चीज होनी चाहिए कि उसको ये पता हो कि मैं कहाँ पर रुक सकता हूँ और कितना मैं आंसर दे सकता हूँ। आज अनफॉर्चुनेटली हमारे आइंस्टाइन साहब हमारे बीच में नहीं है, तो हमें खुद ही क्वेश्चंस पूछने पड़ेंगे, खुद ही आंसर देने हैं, एंड जो बेस्ट पॉसिबल आंसर्स होंगे वो दिए जाएंगे। बट जैसे राजेश जी ने बताया कि शायद आहूजा सर 5:15 के करीब बीच में आप किसी भी टाइम पे ज्वाइन कर सकते हैं, तो इट बी अ प्लेजर कि अगर वो थोड़े टाइम के लिए भी अपना आशीर्वाद दे पाए, सो विल डेफिनेटली बी वेरी ग्रेटफुल कि अगर वो ज्वाइन कर पाएंगे। फ्रेंड्स, आई विल take you through the various amendments in this budget 2022. I am restricting only to the direct tax amendments. उसमें भी जो important amendments हैं जो हमारे लोगों के रोज काम में आएंगी उन्हीं पे concentrate करेंगे। कुछ amendments procedural है, कुछ cosmetic changes है जिसकी हमारे को नहीं जरूरत पड़ेगी, तो I may skip those amendments. सबसे पहले अगर हम start करते हैं section 2 से, which deals with the definitions under the Income Tax Act. सेक्शन 242C में डेफिनेशन दी गई है स्लम्प सेल की। लास्ट ईयर स्लम्प सेल की टैक्सेबिलिटी के बारे में कुछ अमेंडमेंट्स की गई थी लास्ट ईयर के बजट में, जहां पर हमने कंसेप्ट स्लम्प सेल की जगह हमने कर दिया था ट्रांसफर बाय एनी मींस। सो इफ एन अंडरटेकिंग इज ट्रांसफर्ड बाय एनी मींस, सेल इज वन ऑफ देम, इट कुड बी बाय वे ऑफ अ गिफ्ट, इट कुड बी अनदर मीन, we were covering that as a slump sale. उसमें हमने प्रोविजंस ये भी डाले थे कि उसकी सेल कंसिडरेशन कैसे डिटरमिन करनी है, ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ द फेयर मार्केट वैल्यू ऑफ द एसेट्स, ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ द फेयर मार्केट वैल्यू ऑफ द कंसिडरेशन। तो ये सारे प्रोविजंस लास्ट ईयर में चेंज हुए। अब जब अमेंडमेंट हुई थी तो उस प्रोविजन में लास्ट लाइन में वो फिर वही गलती कर गए, उन्होंने ट्रांसफर की जगह वर्ड यूज कर दिया सेल। तो अभी भी कंसेप्ट वही रह गया that slump sale would cover only a transaction of sale. तो उसको चेंज करने के लिए इस बारी डेफिनेशन ऑफ slump sale में चेंज कर दिया, एंड नाउ वी आर यूजिंग द एक्सप्रेशन ट्रांसफर बाय एनी मींस। तो ये सिर्फ एक क्लैरिफिकेटरी अमेंडमेंट slump sale की डेफिनेशन में की गई। सेकंड डेफिनेशन इंसर्ट की गई ऑफ व्हाट इज कॉल्ड ए वर्चुअल डिजिटल एसेट। अब वर्चुअल डिजिटल एसेट, जिसको हम नॉर्मली क्रिप्टो करेंसी के फॉर्म में जानते हैं, उसकी टैक्सेबिलिटी के लिए इस साल के बजट में प्रोविजन दिया गया। वी ऑल एक्सपेक्टेड सच एन अमेंडमेंट इन द एक्ट। हम सब सोच रहे थे कि टैक्सेबिलिटी ऑफ क्रिप्टो करेंसी इस बारी शायद किसी न किसी फॉर्म में आएगा, बट वी ऑल्सो एक्सपेक्टेड सर्टेन रेगुलेटरी फ्रेमवर्क फॉर इट। आज की डेट में भी हमें यह सर्टेन नहीं है whether dealing in cryptocurrency, whether holding cryptocurrency in any form, holding crypto assets in any form, whether it is legal or illegal. Government ने उस पोजीशन को क्लैरिफाई नहीं करा, but they have imposed a tax on that transaction. तो ट्रांजैक्शन को टैक्स करने के लिए एक नया सेक्शन इंट्रोड्यूस कर दिया 115 BBH, जिसमें उन्होंने कर दिया कि एनी प्रॉफिट अराइजिंग ऑन द सेल ऑफ एनी क्रिप्टिक एसेट विल बी टैक्सेबल एट द रेट ऑफ 30%, और वो 30% लगेगा ऑन द ग्रॉस इनकम, दैट इज सेल प्राइस माइनस द कॉस्ट, और कोई किसी किस्म के खर्चे, किसी किस्म के लॉसेस उसमें एडजस्ट नहीं होंगे। तो आई हैव टू पे 30% टैक्स। अब इसके लिए एसेंशियल हो गया दैट आई मस्ट डिफाइन व्हाट इज ए वर्चुअल डिजिटल एसेट। अब इस डेफिनेशन में जो हमने दी गई है एक्ट में अंडर सेक्शन 247A, Cryptocurrency is one of the assets. Baki, it could be in the form of so many cryptic assets like tokens, like vouchers. और इसकी डेफिनेशन मेरे ख्याल वही लोग समझ पाएंगे, हम नहीं समझ पाए अभी तक, जो इसमें डील करते हो, जिनको ये कंसेप्ट्स पता होंगे, उन्हीं को ये डेफिनेशन पूरी समझ आ पाएगी. बट प्राइमरली आई कैन से दैट cryptocurrencies, जिसको हम बिटकॉइंस के फॉर्म में भी जानते हैं, they will now be taxable at a flat rate of 30%. इसके साथ ही इसमें टीडीएस का प्रोविजन भी डाल दिया गया, सेक्शन 194S इंसर्ट करा कि जो परचेजर ऑफ बिटकॉइंस है, परचेजर ऑफ क्रिप्टोकरेंसीज है, he will deduct tax at the rate of 1%. 1% टीडीएस का प्रोविजन भी इसमें डाला, और साथ ही एक अमेंडमेंट कर दी 56(2)(10) में. 56(2)(10), as you would be aware, deals with any gift of sum of money, any gift of movable property, any gift of immovable property. ये सब 56(2)(10) में आ जाते हैं. If the value of the gift exceeds 50,000 rupees, it is deemed to be the income of the recipient. अब immovable property clear है, movable assets के लिए उन्होंने define करा हुआ था as to what is the meaning of the term assets. उसमें एसेट्स में इंक्लूड करते हैं हम ज्वेलरी, बुलियन, पेंटिंग्स, स्कल्पचर्स, वर्क ऑफ एनी आर्ट, ये सारी चीजें उसमें इंक्लूडेड है. अब उसमें हमने अमेंडमेंट करके एक और प्रोविजन डाल दिया, उसमें कर दिया एसेट शैल आल्सो इंक्लूड वर्चुअल डिजिटल एसेट्स. यानी अगर ये वर्चुअल डिजिटल एसेट्स मैं किसी को गिफ्ट भी करता हूं, इट बिकम्स एन इनकम ऑफ द रेसिपिएंट. It will be included in the income of the recipient. बाकी सारे provisions 56(2)(10) के अप्लाई करेंगे. That means if I gift it to a relative, तो अभी भी वो exempt होगा, क्योंकि उस पर 56(2)(10) के provisions नहीं लगते. ठीक है, सिर्फ हमने इसको asset की definition में add कर दिया. And if it is given to a non-relative, value exceeding 50,000 rupees, it shall be deemed to be the income of the recipient. तो ये कुछ अमेंडमेंट्स की गई टू टैक्स द वर्चुअल एसेट्स. अविनाश जी, आप कुछ उसमें ऐड करना चाहेंगे?
Sir, in case of this virtual asset, so there is a corresponding amendment which is also made in the TDS provision. So there is a new section under TDS which is under section 194S has been introduced. What is this 194S? 194S says that any person who is making the payment at the time of transfer of this virtual digital asset or cryptocurrency, whatever you name say, whether in cash or otherwise, then at the time of the transfer he is under an obligation to withhold TDS at the rate of 1%. So that 1% TDS has to be deducted at the time of payment or transfer. Now there are situations where these digital assets have been transferred without any payment, or there are instances where the digital assets are transferred partly for payment, partly for non-payment, or in kind. So आपने क्रिप्टो करेंसी ली, क्रिप्टो करेंसी आपने एज इट इज ट्रांसफर कर दी, या क्रिप्टो करेंसी ली, 4 क्रिप्टो थे, 3 बेच दिए, 3 ट्रांसफर कर दिए और 1 बेच के पैसे ले लिए. And the money what you have generated may be good enough to meet out this TDS liability, or it may not be good enough to meet out this liability. So under 194S, they said that if the amount is less, then either that amount has to be borne by the transfer as a net of tax contract, or you have to recover that amount. It is similarly like a lottery or any other gift that has been given. आपकी कोई BMW निकल जाए, अभी विपिन जी के पीछे BMW निकली थी, विपिन वर्मा जी की, तो इनको उन्होंने कहा कि भाई जो BMW जो है 1 करोड़ पे किया, लेकिन तब देंगे जब पहले 30 लाख रुपए जमा कराओगे टैक्स के. तो इनका फोन आया कि क्या करें, मैं कहा सर टैक्स देना पड़ेगा. तो सिमिलरली अगर ये आपके डिजिटल एसेट विपिन जी अगर आपको कोई मिलेगी, तो और वो आपसे क्या कहेंगे, पहले ये टीडीएस का जो है 1% जमा कराओ, दिस हैज टू बी डिपॉजिटेड विद द गवर्नमेंट. So this amount has to be there. But इस टैक्स को जमा कराने के लिए, for depositing the TDS, the person is not required to obtain TAN number. There is no requirement. तो आपको TAN नंबर लेने की आवश्यकता नहीं पड़ेगी. जैसे हम टैक्स जमा कराते हैं प्रॉपर्टी का, वैसे इन द सेम फॉर्मेट हम पेन टू पेन बेसिस पे फॉर्म आएगा और उसके हिसाब से हम ये टैक्स जमा करा सकते हैं। ये टीडीएस हम जमा करा सकते हैं। नो टीडीएस इज टू बी डिडक्टेड. There is no requirement to deduct TDS if the aggregate amount paid or credited during the year in the case of a specified person does not exceed 50,000 and in all other cases it does not exceed 10,000. So मान लीजिए अग्रवाल जी के अग्रवाल साहब एक specified assessee हैं और इन्होंने during that period, during that financial year, he have transferred the purchased the cryptocurrency up to 49,000 rupees, less than 50,000 rupees, then he is not under an obligation to withhold any tax. In all other cases, the limit is 10,000. Now the question is, who are the specified assessee? The specified assessee have been defined in the Act under 194S like any individual or HUF who is doing a business but the gross receipts of the business does not exceed 1 crore, or the individual who is doing a profession but the gross receipt does not exceed 50 lakh rupees, then he is treated as a specified assessee. Or he may be an individual or an HUF who is not at all doing a business. So कोई भी individual और HUF जो business नहीं कर रहा या बिजनेस कर रहा है बट उसकी ग्रॉस रिसीट जो है वो 1 करोड़ से कम है इन केस ऑफ बिजनेस या 50 लाख से कम है इन केस ऑफ प्रोफेशन, देन ही इज अ स्पेसिफाइड एसएससी. अब हम इसको कहते हैं कौन स्पेसिफाइड एसएससी नहीं होगा? इंडिविजुअल एचयूएफ जो 1 करोड़ या 50 लाख से ज्यादा है, फर्म, एओपी, बीओआई, कंपनी, ऑल आर नॉन स्पेसिफाइड एसएससी. तो वंस यू हैव क्रॉस दैट लिमिट ऑफ 10,000 रुपीज तो आपको इस पूरे अमाउंट के ऊपर जो भी डिजिटल एसेट आप ट्रांसफर करेंगे, you are under an obligation to withhold 1% TDS on the same. Then the other question where the board have a power to make rules, ये डिजिटल एसेट कैसे होगी, क्या फंजेबल टोकन क्या होता है, नॉन फंजेबल टोकन क्या होता है, एटसेट्रा एटसेट्रा. तो दे विल गिव यू डिटेल्ड रूल्स फॉर द सेम, बट कोई पेन लेने की जरूरत नहीं है. और ये इस तरह से हमारा ये टीडीएस हमें करना पड़ेगा इफ द पेमेंट इज मेड टू अ रेजिडेंट एसएससी. ओवर टू रवि जी.
Regarding taxability of the virtual digital assets, जिसको इस बार इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया. Then there are some provisions, some small amendments in section 8. कुछ subsections थे section 10, 8, 8A, 8B, 9, which had lost their significance. तो उनका एक sunset clause डाल दिया गया. I think we will not go into that. Major amendment in section 14A, clarificatory in nature. Section 14A, as you know, deals with expenditure relating to exempt income. So 14A says that if you incur any expenditure in relation to an income which is exempt from tax, that expenditure will not be allowed as deduction. Because we are not taxing the income, so correspondingly that expenditure will not be allowed as deduction. Uska rule 8D bhi hai. And we have had plenty of decisions, बहुत सारे decisions, high courts के, tribunals के, सब decisions आ गए, which say that if during a year a person has not earned any exempt income, 14A will not become applicable. तो मैंने खर्चा तो करा है, but I have not earned an exempt income, then 14A has been held not to be applicable. इसके ऊपर अलग अलग हाई कोर्ट्स के अलग अलग व्यूज थे. कुछ हाई कोर्ट्स ने कहा 14A नहीं लगेगा, कुछ कहा लगेगा. बोर्ड ऑल्सो इशूड ए सर्कुलर टू दिस इफेक्ट कि जिन हाई कोर्ट्स में कहा है कि नहीं लगना चाहिए, उसके जुरिस्डिक्शन में जितने आईटीओज आते हैं वो नहीं लगेगा, अदरवाइज बाकी जगह लगेगा. सीपीसी में जितनी हम रिटर्न्स फाइल करते थे उसमें ये सब एडिशंस हो जाते. अब इसके लिए क्लैरिफिकेशन की जरूरत थी टू अवॉइड लिटिगेशन. सो देयरफॉर वी हैव क्लैरिफाइड इन सेक्शन 14A that whether there is any exempt income earned during the year or not, 14A will be attractive. तो अब ये एक्ट में क्लैरिफाई कर दिया whether you have earned any income in this year or not, but if you have made any investment to earn any exempt income, corresponding expenditure will be disallowed under section 14A. ये अमेंडमेंट आपकी इफेक्टिव है फ्रॉम असेसमेंट ईयर 22-23. देन कमिंग टू सेक्शन 17(2), अब ये कोविड रिलेटेड कुछ रिलीफ्स असेसीज को दी गई. One amendment is under section 17(2) which deals with perquisite. ये सेक्शन कहता है that if the employer provides any medical reimbursement or it incurs any expenses or medical treatment of COVID-19 for the employee or for any member of his family, then this will not be taxable as a person. तो ये एक बेनिफिट एम्प्लॉयज को मिला कि कोविड के लिए जो भी उनके एम्प्लॉयर ने उनके ऊपर खर्चा करा होगा, whether it is on hospitalization or treatment at home, that will not be deemed to be perquisite, just like any other medical treatment in a hospital. इसके ऊपर भी जो खर्चा है वो मेडिकल ट्रीटमेंट का, उसको perquisite नहीं मानेंगे. It will not be deemed to be taxable in the hands of the employer. Correspondingly, सेक्शन 56 to 10 में भी अमेंडमेंट कर दिया कि if this expenditure has been incurred by any other person, ठीक है, एम्प्लॉयर ने नहीं करा, किसी और ने कर दिया. अविनाश जी ने बहुत सारा खर्चा किया ड्यूरिंग कोविड-19, बहुत सारे इन्होंने इंस्टीट्यूशंस के थ्रू कोविड-19 के पेशेंट्स को, जिनके जॉब चली गई थी उनको, प्लस होमलेस पर्संस को इन्होंने काफी उसके अंदर से हेल्प करी. अब 56 to 10 तो ये कहता है that if you receive any amount from a non-relative, it is deemed to be your income. तो यहाँ पर भी 56 to 10 में हमने डाल दिया that if you have received any amount for the treatment of the COVID-19 disease, whether in a hospital or otherwise, it is for the treatment of the person or any of his relatives, it shall not be deemed to be covered under 56 to 10. 56 to 10 में उसको exemption मिल गई. एक और exemption हमने दे दी that if a person receives any compensation in cash from any person in relation to death of a person due to COVID-19, that compensation will also be exempt up to the extent of rupees 10 lakhs. 10 lakh तक अगर compensation मिली है, aggregate compensation, maybe from one source, maybe from more than one source, 10 लाख तक की कंपनसेशन उसके लिए टैक्सेबल नहीं होगी. अगर कंपनसेशन 10 लाख से ऊपर है, then according to the language of section, entire amount becomes taxable. Not only the excess, but the entire amount becomes taxable. It is covered under 56.
Sir, यहाँ एक question है गुप्ता जी. If this 10,000, if in one family, 8 lakhs of rupees have been received by 3 members in a family, so that 10 lakhs will be per person or per family?
See, it says received by the person.
So individual.
तो इंडिविजुअल के लिए. तो अगर एक ही आदमी को तीनों फैमिली मेंबर्स के लिए मिला है, तो देन दिस लिमिट विल अप्लाई टू दैट पर्सन. पर अगर वो तीनों को अलग अलग मिला है, so then the limit will apply to each individual separately.
Okay, thank you.
Income has to be assessed for each assessee. So a person who receives this income should be assessed in that hand only. So if there is five people in the family, one died, and all 4 people got 8 lakh rupees from various sources, then I think in each hand it is less than 10 lakh, you can claim that benefit.
Right. Thank you.
Well, friends, then there are some amendments under the head of business income. These again are clarificatory in nature to avoid litigation. Some clarifications have been made here. Section 40A 2I. Now 40A, as you are aware, deals with some expenses which are not to be allowed as a deduction in computing your business income. 40A 2I specifically says that any tax paid on the income of a person will not be allowed as a deduction. अब इसमें कुछ कोर्ट की डिसीजन आ गई where SSC said that the cess that I pay, the 4% जो हम cess pay करते हैं, education and health and education cess, that is not a tax. It is a cess on the tax, so it should not be equated as tax on the income. So therefore, I should be allowed to claim this as a deduction. दो हाई कोर्ट्स ने इसको favorable decision SSC के favor में दे दी. But we had one Supreme Court judgment which was rendered about 10-12 years back, जहां पर की surcharge cess सबको tax hold किया गया. So based upon that Supreme Court judgment, we have made this amendment in the Act clarifying that all surcharge and cess shall be treated as income tax, shall be treated as tax on the income. Therefore, this will not be allowed as a deduction. So this will put an end to this litigation. बहुत सारे सेमिनार्स में बहुत सारी जगह यही क्वेश्चन पूछते थे कि कैन वी क्लेम दिस सेस एज अ डिडक्शन। अब ये क्लेरिफाई कर दिया गया और इसको रेट्रोस्पेक्टिवली कर दिया फ्रॉम असेसमेंट ईयर 2005-6। तो यानी 5-6 से ही ये प्रोविजन इफेक्टिव है। यू कैन नॉट क्लेम द डिडक्शन ऑफ द सेस दैट इज पेड। इसी तरीके से एक्सप्लेनेशन टू सेक्शन 37(1) deals with expenditure which is of a illegal nature, which is for unethical payments, which is unlawful in nature. So 37(1) कहता है these expenses will not be allowed as deduction. Because we have a specific explanation to that. अब इसमें बहुत सारी again controversy शुरू हो गई कि should it be illegal in India? If I'm making a payment outside India and it may be illegal in a foreign country, how will you attract section 37(1)? So if I'm making a payment outside India, it may be even for a bribe, that should be not be covered under explanation to 37(1). फिर minutely लोगों ने इसमें और भी कुछ अपनी नुक्ताचीनी निकाल ली। अब मेडिकल काउंसिल ने सर्कुलर इशू करा हुआ है that medical companies, if they give any benefit to the doctors to promote their products, it is an unethical practice. बहुत सारी कंपनीज डॉक्टर्स को फॉरेन टूर पे भी ले जाती हैं, टीवी सेट भी देती है गिफ्ट में। So board, the council has said that this is an unethical practice, it should not be allowed, and therefore board also issued a circular that these will be covered under explanation to 37(1), will not be allowed deduction. अब लोगों ने कहा कि if the medical company gives this facility to the hospital, hospital is not regulated by the medical council, only doctors are, so then it should not be hit by the explanation. तो ये सब चीजों की controversy को put at rest करने के लिए they have said all sorts of illegal payments, all sorts of unethical payments, whether India or abroad, they will be covered under the explanation. उसको उन्होंने clarify कर दिया 3-4 clauses डाल के that all these will be covered, will not be allowed as a deduction. Compounding fees भी अगर हम pay करते हैं तो उसको भी as an offense मानकर, तो compounding fees हम प्रोसिक्यूशन अंडर इनकम टैक्स भी पे कर सकते हैं, कंपाउंडिंग फीस हम दूसरे एक्ट में भी दे सकते हैं, कस्टम ड्यूटी में भी देते हैं, जीएसटी में भी देते हैं, तो दैट इज आल्सो ट्रीटेड इक्विवेलेंट टू अ पेनल्टी और उसकी भी डिडक्शन अब नहीं मिलेगी। सेक्शन 43B में, सेक्शन 43B we know provides that certain expenses will be allowed as a deduction only on payment basis. Even if the cessee is maintaining the accounts on accrual basis, some payments like payment of PF, ESI, employers' contribution, the payment of interest to financial institutions, payment of bonus, etc. to employees, these are covered under 43B. अब interest के ऊपर थोड़ी सी dispute आई कि if I have to pay interest to financial institutions, that interest has been accumulated. Instead of paying the interest to them, I issue my debentures to the organization, to the institution. Can I now claim that as a deduction? अब assessee कहने लगे कि I have discharged my liability to pay the tax, therefore I should be allowed the deduction under 43B. इसके ऊपर फिर controversies चल रही थी. We had decisions on both sides. It has been clarified that conversion of interest liability in any other form will not be treated as actual payment. It will not be allowed as a deduction. Because this was the amendment in section 43B. अब इसके बाद हम बात करते हैं 17 तो हमने कर लिया, सेक्शन 68 में आते हैं। सेक्शन 68 provides for undisclosed income. 68 कहता है if any amount is found credited in the books of accounts of the assessee for which the assessee does not offer an explanation or the explanation offered by him is not found to be acceptable, then it shall be treated as the undisclosed income of the assessee of the year in which the amount is found credited. एक proviso इसमें और डाल दिया which is applicable only to closely held companies. इसमें लिखा गया that if a closely held company receives any share application money, any share money, any share premium, or any amount of any sort, then the assessee is required to explain not only the source of that amount, is also required to explain the source of the source. यानी अगर मेरी कंपनी केएम अग्रवाल जी से कोई लोन ले लेती है तो मैं ये तो एक्सप्लेन कर दूंगा कि मैंने लोन केएम अग्रवाल जी से लिया, बट आई विल ऑल्सो हैव टू एक्सप्लेन कि केएम अग्रवाल जी के पास वो पैसा कहां से आया. So that was the provision which was inserted, applicable only to closely held companies, held that it is applicable only to share money, whether it is share application, share money, or share premium. So some decisions said that this is not applicable to a transaction of a loan or an advance. So if a company has received a loan or advance, I only have to explain the source of that amount, not the source of the source. But now we have clarified that this proviso will be applicable even to loans and advances received by a closely held company. So I will be required to explain the source of that amount as well as the source of the source. So that is an additional burden on the closely held companies. Section 79A has been inserted again to clarify an issue. Now, whenever during a course of search, certain undisclosed income is found, certain undisclosed assets are found, certain undisclosed inventory is found, that is taxable under section 68, 69, 69, etc. It is treated as undisclosed amount, undisclosed investment, undisclosed expenditure, etc. Now, the question was that if I have any losses of the current year or any brought forward losses, can I adjust those losses against this? Now, again, some assessees said that although it is taxable under 68, 69, etc., but it is still my income earned from business. And recently also we had a High Court judgment where it said that if any undisclosed stock is found during the course of search, and the assessee establishes that this was generated in the normal course of business, it should be taxed as my business income. Therefore, assessee was able to offset his losses against this income. The government said that this is not the intention. We want to prevent evasion of taxes. So they have clarified by inserting 79A that no losses, whether of current year or brought forward losses, will be adjusted against any income, undisclosed income, which is found during the course of search or survey. Then, friends, we have an amendment under section 80CCD, which deals with the employer's contribution to national pension scheme. Whatever an employer contributes to the national pension scheme for the benefit of the employee, the employer's contribution is exempt generally up to 10% of the salary. In case of central government employees, because the central government was contributing up to 14%, exemption was allowed to the extent of 14%. State governments also started contributing 14% of the salary to the NPS. But the benefit under section 80CCD was only to the central government. So now that has been extended to the state government employees also. So all other employees, the limit remains at 10% of the salary. State government, central government employees, the exemption shall be 14% of the salary. Another amendment in section 80DD, which deals with the expenditure incurred on maintenance or the treatment of a handicapped relative. Right? A deduction is provided under section 80DD. There is also a provision for taking an insurance policy under which an annuity may be obtained for the benefit of the disabled person. The existing provisions say that this annuity should be available to the handicapped person only on the event of the death of his parent or guardian. Now, there was a Supreme Court judgment in which Justice Sikri also said that the government needs to have a relook at this because there might be circumstances where the handicapped person may require the funds even during the lifetime of the parent or the guardian. So now we have inserted the provision that even during the lifetime, if the age of that person exceeds 60 years, then whatever annuity is received, that also shall be exempt, allowed as a deduction under section 80DD. We have a small incentive for startups under Section 80 AC, an eligible startup which was incorporated during the year 2006 to 2022, they were eligible for a 100% deduction of their profits for 3 consecutive years. Right? This was an incentive for the startups. Keeping in view the pandemic situation where businesses were stopped, etc., this outer limit of 2022 has been extended to 23. So now the startups which are established up to 23 will be eligible for the deduction. Similarly, a new section 115 BAB was inserted to provide a tax rate of 15% for new manufacturing companies. So if a new company is established, which is engaged in manufacture of any product, then the tax rate applicable to them was only 15% as against the normal tax of 22, 25, or even 30%. In this case, they had to start the commencement of the production on or before 31st March 23. This period has also been extended by a period of 1 year. So now these companies which commence production up to March 24 can be eligible to pay tax only at the rate of 15%. Coming to the next very important provision, much looked upon provision, is of filing of the updated return. Right? This was a long outstanding demand. The committee of which Dr. Ahuja was a member for redrafting of the Income Tax Act, they have also suggested a similar provision. So I think the government would have picked up from that. Now say the government these days has a lot of information about these assets. They collect the information from various sources. Various authorities, various organizations have to provide information regarding transactions. This information is collected by the department. Earlier, the policy of the department was that they would hide this information, let the assessee disclose it. If the assessee would not disclose it, they would issue notices under 148. They would conduct a survey, detect this income, and then the assessee would suffer the consequences of interest, penalty, etc. But then there was a paradigm shift in the policy of the department. They said we will disclose all this information to the assessee. So this year onwards, you would have seen that besides 26AS, you also get a statement of annual information. All the transactions that you have undertaken during the year, these are being reflected in the statement. Even transactions of sale and purchase of shares, even your saving bank accounts on which even TDS may not have been deducted, whatever you have made, all these transactions are being reflected in the statement. Now, there could be circumstances where an assessee has not included some of these transactions in the return that he has filed. He comes to know of this information at a later stage. Or even if the information is not there, because of any reasons, it did not include that income. So what is the option available? Should we wait for a notice to be issued under 148? Because the time for filing the revised return is very limited. Now, as you know, it can be filed only by 31st of December. So you file your normal return by 31st July, and within 5 months, you have the time to file a revised return. If you cannot file the revised return, you have no other option. So then the government said that we want to believe on the honesty of the taxpayer. If he has forgotten or mistakenly not included that in his return of income, let him come forward and file what is called an updated return. They have given a period of 2 years from the end of the relevant assessment year. You can still file an updated return. Include this in your income, pay the tax, pay an additional tax. Additional tax is 25% if you file the updated return within 1 year. It is 50% of the tax if you file it within a period of 2 years. After 1 year, before 2 years, you have to pay 50% of the tax as additional tax. Plus, there'll be a liability to pay interest under 234A, B, and C, which I think Avinash will explain in detail. But this is the basic provision of the updated return. Another thing that we must keep in mind, updated return is to declare any income which was omitted earlier. It is not to claim a refund. It is not to reduce your income. So if you have forgotten to make a deduction, if you have forgotten to claim a loss, then you cannot update the return. You cannot increase your refund by filing an updated return. It is just like 148, which is for the benefit of the revenue. So only if you have to pay an extra tax, then only I think you can file the updated return. Avinash, whatever points you want to add here?
Doctor,
Yes,
I have a few issues on this. ले ले अभी या बाद में लेंगे?
सर ले लेंगे, अभी ले लेंगे.
देखिए,
let me give you the complete.
अविनाश जी थोड़ा सा explain कर
okay,
लें.
चलिए.
We will take that up.
So, in addition to what Dr. Ravi Gupta ji have just said, who cannot file a updated return under section 139(8)(a)? One, you cannot file a loss return. So whether the person have filed the original return, whether they have filed or not, but you cannot file a loss return under an updated return. You cannot file a return which will reduce the tax liability of the taxpayer as compared to original return. So, for example, Dhamija Saab have filed his original return declaring the income X and the tax liability on that is, let's say, 15 lakh rupees. He cannot file an updated return stating that earlier he have given this particular income as a short-term capital gain, but now it is a long-term capital gains, hence the tax rate may have reduced from 30% to 20%. So the actual tax liability would have reduced in such case. There is no change in the income, but the liability of tax is reduced. So even in those cases, this is not allowed. He cannot file a revised return, updated return for claiming any refund. He cannot claim any revised return which will increase the amount of refund. So मैंने चार चीजें बोली, लॉस रिटर्न नहीं फाइल कर सकते, दूसरा मैंने बोला जो टैक्स लायबिलिटी रिड्यूस कर दे नहीं फाइल कर सकते, रिफंड के लिए रिटर्न नहीं फाइल कर सकते, और रिफंड इंक्रीज करने के लिए जो है ये रिवाइज ये अपडेटेड रिटर्न नहीं फाइल कर सकते. बट हाँ, रिफंड था, रिड्यूस करने के लिए मैं फाइल कर सकता हूँ. दिस इज वन. Second, I think somebody is not on mute, so I request that you please mute yourself. Then there is a second set that if a search or survey proceeding have already been initiated against the SSC, or a requisition for jewelry, etc., have been made in the case, then in those cases of survey, search, requisition, etc., also the person, the SSC, cannot file an updated return. This is second set. They said for such survey cases, you cannot file an updated return. Next, SSC cannot file an updated return if he have already filed an updated return for the same assessment year, meaning thereby updated return can be filed only once. Second, if there is an assessment, reassessment, or recomputation proceeding is going on against the SSC, then also he is not eligible for filing this updated return. Third, if the assessing officer is having the information available with him under the Money Laundering Act, the information that he have gathered or he have received, with the information is under Money Laundering Act, under Black Money Act, under Copper-Posa Act, under FEMA Smuggling Act, etc., then also he is not eligible to file the updated return. Next, if the assessing officer receives any information under section 90 or 90A of the Income Tax Act, meaning thereby under the exchange of information under DTAA, then in those cases also he cannot file, the assessing is not eligible to file an updated return. Next, if the prosecution is pending or is initiated against the person or against the SSC, then also you cannot file a revised return, and last, any other case as may be notified by the board, in those cases also the person cannot file a revised return. कल ही शाम को राजेश अग्रवाल जी ने फोन किया कि सर इतने सारे नहीं आ गए, तो 148A का नोटिस आया और क्या मैं अपडेटेड रिटर्न फाइल कर सकता हूं? Answer is yes, he can do that, because 148A notice once received, though nothing have received till date, but once received, this is not a proceeding. Nothing is there. Yes, one can file an updated return. Now the second question which comes in this 139.8A, which is an updated return, that how to compute that additional tax. So sir have just said that if you file this updated return within a period of 12 months from the end of the assessment year, then the additional tax is 25% of the income tax plus interest. And if it is beyond 12 months but up to 24 months, then the additional tax is 50% of the tax and interest. Now, how to compute it? For this, they have inserted it under 140B. What they said that under 140B, there is two kind of an SSC. One is an SSC who have never filed the return of income for that particular assessment year, and another is a SSC who have filed the return of income under the normal provisions, maybe a regular return under 139(1), or a belated return, or a revised return under 139(4) and 5. That might be the case. So let us take the first case where the assessee have never filed a return of income and he is allowed to file a updated return within a period of 2 years or 24 months from the end of the assessment year. In such a case, his tax liability would be computed like this. Whatever is the updated income, that is he want to file or he want to show or he want to file, put it in the return, updated return, compute the tax liability of that particular income, whatever he want to show, reduce the amount by TDS, TCS collected on that income, reduce the amount of any advance tax or any self-assessment tax if paid by that assessee, reduce that amount further with any relief which is available to that assessee, reduce further this amount with any foreign tax credit which is available to the assessee under 90, 90A or 91, further reduce this amount for any credit under AMT or MAT which is available to the assessee. After that, whatever is the amount left, that is the tax which he has to pay, then add 234A, 234B and 234C interest on that. After adding both of them, 234 ABC plus the amount of the tax, whatever we have computed, then on this amount, 25% or 50% to be paid as an extra amount, which is called as additional tax. Then you pay it, put a challan of payment along with the return of income. If you do not put a challan, then it will be deemed to be a defective return under section 139(10). विनय जी हंस रहे हैं, कह रहे हैं कि लगता है ऐसा रहा था कि बहुत आसानी से ये अपडेटेड रिटर्न कर देंगे, लेकिन अब इनको लगा है कि ये कुछ तो झमेला है. अब इसके बाद सर अब आगे ज्यादा झमेला बताऊंगा.
अविनाश जी, ये पूरा झोल जो है उन्हीं के लिए है जिनके लिए झोल पड़ा हुआ है ये.
चलिए सर आगे चलते. सर नहीं सर ये ठीक है, कई लोगों के लिए जो रिटर्न नहीं भरते हैं बाद में उनको ये एनएमएस वाले जो नोटिस आते हैं और बाद में वो आके हमारे पास आते हैं, हमारे पास कोई ऑप्शन नहीं होता क्योंकि रिटर्न कैसे भरे, फिर अननेसेसरी उनकी 148 में असेसमेंट होती है, असेसमेंट करानी पड़ती है, असेसमेंट का टैक्स जमा कराना पड़ता है और फिर पेनल्टी प्रोसीडिंग भी करनी पड़ती है. तो अब क्या है कि जैसे ही हमें आएगा हम इस पर अपडेटेड रिटर्न करके उसका कर सकते हैं. हाँ 25% और 50% हमें उसका एक्स्ट्रा जरूर देना पड़ेगा और वो देना भी चाहिए ताकि ऑनेस्ट टैक्स पेयर और डिसऑनेस्ट टैक्स पेयर में कुछ तो फर्क रहे. अब आइए सर आगे चलते हैं कि अगर उसने ऑर्डिनरी अपनी रेगुलर रिटर्न भरी है, if the assessee have already filed a return of income whether belated, revised or original, तीनों में से कोई भी हो सकती है, then he has to again compute how much is the updated income or income as per the updated return, total income as per the updated return, on compute the tax on that updated income, reduce the same from on account of any amount of TDS, TCS, advance tax, self-assessment tax, relief which is claimed by the assessee in his original return, revised return or belated return. So जो भी उसने किया है वो उसको माइनस कर दें. whatever additional income he have offered, उस additional income के ऊपर if there is any TDS which have not been claimed by the SSC, also reduce that. Reduce foreign tax credit, reduce AMT credit, MAT credit, etc. Then whatever is the amount which is called as a tax liability, on that income, on that tax liability, add 234B, 234C and 234A also if the original return is belated return, because return is filed. So if the original return is a belated return, then only 234A, otherwise 234B and C. Aggregate the tax liability and interest liability and make an additional tax of 25% or 30% of the amount calculated. This is to be paid along with the updated return filed under section 139(8)A. So this is the entire scheme which have been prescribed by the Finance Bill 2021. Now I request Srivastava ji, you can now raise the question if you have any now after that. Srivastava ji, you are on mute.
Okay, now I'm unmuted myself. See, very first thing, that whether the form of return would be same or it will be a different form.
No, it has to be different, sir. It has to be different.
It has to be a bit different form. Then next issue is, if I filed a loss return and I just want to
Srivastava ji,
गुप्ता जी पहले आप अपना डेलिब्रेशन कंप्लीट कर लो, उसके बाद ही क्वेश्चन आंसर करो सर.
ठीक है राजेश जी, we'll do that.
प्लीज.
So Srivastava sir, you'll have to wait for some time, please. Coming to the next amendment.
In the matter, only after that, end of that, we'll take up this question now.
ठीक है सर जी. Next major amendment regarding the provisions of 148, 148A, 149, etc., which were introduced in the last budget. अब इसमें last year में you would know that पुराना section 148 को हमने replace कर दिया था by new section 148, 148A introduce कर दिया, और उसमें time limits वगैरह भी हमने सारी change कर दी. सर्च के केसेस भी हमने 153 ABC सारे डिलीट कर दिए और उनको भी इसी में मर्ज कर दिया. अब ओल्ड प्रोविजंस के अंडर फिर भी नोटिसेस इशू हो रहे थे टिल 30 जून. उन्होंने नोटिफिकेशन से वो डेट एक्सटेंड कर दी थी. पीपल हैड फाइल्ड रेट पिटिशंस इन वेरियस हाई कोर्ट्स और वेरियस हाई कोर्ट्स हैव क्वश्ड दोस नोटिसेस अंडर 148. अब हमें कुछ ऐसी भी उम्मीद थी कि शायद ये इसकी बैकडेट में कुछ रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव अमेंडमेंट करके शायद उन नोटिस को रिवैलिडेट करने की कोशिश करेंगे, बट इनफैक्ट ऐसा कुछ हुआ नहीं, बिकॉज द डिपार्टमेंट हैज ऑलरेडी गॉन टू द सुप्रीम कोर्ट. तो अब सुप्रीम कोर्ट के वर्डिक्ट के लिए पुरानी असेसमेंट जो खुली थी उनको हम वेट करेंगे. उसके लिए जो नए प्रोविजंस इन्होंने डाले थे, देयर वर अ लॉट ऑफ ड्राफ्टिंग एरर्स इन दी न्यू सेक्शंस 148 में, 148A में. अब ये पता नहीं कैसे उन्होंने ड्राफ्टिंग करी थी उस वक्त कि 148 में भी जो प्रोविजन डाला गया कि इंफॉर्मेशन के बेसिस पर आप नोटिस इशू करेंगे, उसमें इंफॉर्मेशन बड़ी लिमिटेड रखी गई. दो किस्म की इंफॉर्मेशन कहा उन्होंने. एनी इंफॉर्मेशन विच इज any information regarding income which has escaped assessment which is flagged by the Controller General of Audit. तो CAG के ऑडिट में अगर कोई इनकम एस्केपमेंट आती है तभी आप कर सकते हैं, या एनी इंफॉर्मेशन विच इज फ्लैग्ड बाय द रिस्क असेसमेंट मैनेजमेंट. तो सिर्फ ऐसी दो चीजें डाली गई, और सर्च के केस में उन्होंने डाल दिया that whenever a search is conducted, it shall be presumed that the assessing officer has information for 3 assessment years prior to the date of search. तो बड़ा लिमिटेड स्कोप सेक्शन 148 का रखा गया. बट देन द गवर्नमेंट फाउंड कि हमारे पास तो बहुत सारी इंफॉर्मेशन आती है, बहुत सारा मटेरियल आता है, अगर हम इसको इतना रिस्ट्रिक्टेड करेंगे तो देन वी विल नॉट बी एबल टू assess the income which has escaped assessment. तो अब उन्होंने 148, 148A, 149 को सारी दोबारा से अमेंडमेंट करके उन प्रोविजंस को चेंज कर दिया, और नए जो पुराने प्रोविजंस पिछले साल दिए थे 148 148A के, उसके अंदर अभी तक मेरे हिसाब से कोई नोटिस इशू भी नहीं हुए हैं, तो वो सारे प्रोविजंस अब दोबारा से चेंज कर दिए। अब उसमें ये कर दिया कि एनी इंफॉर्मेशन विच एमिनेट्स फ्रॉम एनी ऑडिट, सिर्फ सीएजी का नहीं, कोई भी ऑडिट से कोई इंफॉर्मेशन आती है, दैट कैन बी अ बेसिस फॉर इशू ऑफ नोटिस ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन में भी रिसीव्ड अंडर सेक्शन 90, 98, 91, वो भी इंफॉर्मेशन इसके लिए हो जाएगी। और इंफॉर्मेशन फ्लैग्ड ऑफ बाय द रिस्क मैनेजमेंट, वो भी उन्होंने फ्लैग्ड ऑफ कर दिया, एनी इंफॉर्मेशन रिसीव्ड फ्रॉम दी 135 में जो भी इंफॉर्मेशन उनके पास आएगी उसके बेसिस पर भी 148 इशू कर सकते हैं। जो इन्होंने 3 इयर्स का रेफरेंस दिया था वो किसका और क्या था? कोर्ट और ट्राइब्यूनल के ऑर्डर से अगर कोई इनकम की आती है व्हिच हैज टू बी असेस्ड इन दैट ईयर, उसको भी अब ये 148 इशू कर सकते हैं। जो रेफरेंस इन्होंने सर्च केसेस में 3 साल का दिया था, वो 3 साल का रेफरेंस हटा दिया, तो यानी अब सर्च केस में सीधा सा 10 साल की भी उसकी इंफॉर्मेशन डीम्ड टू बी इंफॉर्मेशन हो जाएगी, एंड डिपार्टमेंट में बी एबल टू इशू नोटिसेस फॉर 10 इयर्स ऑल्सो। दूसरा, इन्होंने जब 3 साल के नोटिस को इशू करना था उसके लिए तो अलग से प्रोविजन था, दैट कैन बी इशूड विदाउट एनी मॉनेटरी लिमिट। 3 साल के बियॉन्ड अगर जाना है, देन दे सेड दैट देयर शुड बी income escaping assessment of more than rupees 50 lakhs, which is represented in the form of an asset. अब ये फिर बहुत रिस्ट्रिक्शन हो गई थी, इट शुड बी रिप्रेजेंटेड इन द फॉर्म ऑफ एन एसेट। अब उसको फिर वाइडन कर दिया, इट शुड बी इन द फॉर्म ऑफ एन एसेट, और इट कैन बी एनी एक्सपेंडिचर, इट कैन बी एनी एक्सपेंस ऑन अ फंक्शन एक्सेट्रा। वो सारी चीजें अब इसमें 140 आप 3 साल से ऊपर जा सकते हैं टिल 10 years, प्रोवाइडेड द इनकम एस्केपिंग असेसमेंट इज मोर देन 50 लाख। तो ये कुछ मेजर पॉइंट्स जो मैं आपको बताना चाहता था सेक्शन 1 में, जिसको कि हमने रीड्राफ्टिंग एरर्स को करेक्ट करने के लिए इस बारी प्रोविजन में चेंज करें। अविनाश जी, यू थ्रो सम लाइट ऑन दिस?
Yeah, sir. One important thing what they have made under 148 is, so earlier when this 148A provision came, the promise of the government is that they will reopen only 3 years cases. They will not go beyond 3 years, and they will go beyond 3 years only in exceptional circumstances, wherever they found that there is an income which have escaped assessment exceeding rupees 50 lakhs, which have been represented by an asset today. So for example, मैंने एक घर खरीदा और वो घर मैंने जो है 5 साल पहले 6 साल पहले खरीदा था और उसकी वैल्यू 50 लाख से ज्यादा है, and the department or the AO is of the view that this have escaped assessment and that have escaped income of a particular year, but the same is represented by an asset today. But now they have enlarged the scope, and enlarge the scope by saying 2 more things, that if they came to know of any expenditure, मैंने 5 साल पहले अपना बर्थडे सेलिब्रेट किया और वो बर्थडे सेलिब्रेट करने में सबको मैं स्विट्जरलैंड ले गया, मैं सबको कहीं बाहर घुमाने ले गया और मैंने 1 करोड़ रुपए का खर्चा कर दिया, and department is of the view that this 1 crore rupees whatever I spend, whatever expenditure I have done is an income which is escaped assessment, which are not there, even though that money have already gone in relation to an event, in relation to any other expenditure or transaction that I have done, still they can reopen the case. The third, which is very important in this case, is that any amount which is represented by an entry or aggregate of entries in the books of accounts. तो मेरी बुक्स में कोई लोन एंट्री खड़ी है, कोई और एंट्री खड़ी है, और वो एंट्रीज जो है वो बियॉन्ड 3 ईयर है, but the aggregate amount is exceeding 50 lakh rupees. So even in those cases, they can reopen my assessment. According to me, I feel that in most of the cases now, it is not like 7 years reduced to 3 years. It is 7 years increased to 10 years. In search also, Ravi ji is an expert in search and dealing on search matter, though I do not go for these matter. I think, sir, in search also, nowadays, instead of 6-year block assessment, we will see 10 years block assessment in case of search that will be there.
अगर सर्च के केस में
50 लाख
तो वही 10 साल के लिए ये जा पाएंगे, एंड नेचुरली जब भी सर्च होती है तो 50 लाख रुपीज इज टू स्मॉल अमाउंट, तो 50 लाख के तो एसेट एक्सपेंडिचर एंट्रीज मिल ही जाती हैं, तो प्रैक्टिकली स्पीकिंग वी कैन से दैट नाउ केसेस विल बी रीओपन फॉर अबाउट 10 years. तो ये जो नए प्रोविजंस आए हैं, इसमें जितने पुराने प्रोविजंस में थोड़ा सा बेनिफिट दिख रहा था, वो सारा नहीं मिलेगा, एंड नॉर्मली दे विल नाउ रीओपन अप टू 10 years. सर इसके बाद मैं एक दो प्रोविजंस टीडीएस के कर देता हूँ, फिर आप प्रोसीजर में आप कर दीजिएगा। 194 IA में थोड़ी सी एक छोटी सी अमेंडमेंट करी गई है। 194 IA यू नो डील्स विद टीडीएस इन केस ऑफ इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी। तो अगर कोई परचेज आप करते हैं इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी फॉर अ वैल्यू ऑफ मोर देन 50 लाख रुपीस, यू आर रिक्वायर्ड टू डिडक्ट टैक्स ऑफ 1%। 1% टीडीएस आपने उसमें काटना। अब 50C प्रोविजन है, 43CA प्रोविजन है, वहां पर कंसेप्ट ये कहता है दैट इफ द स्टैंप ड्यूटी % का लीवरेज दिया हुआ है, that if the stamp duty value exceeds 110% of the sale consideration, then it should be deemed to be your. अब 194 IA बात करता था सिर्फ एक्चुअल सेल कंसिडरेशन की. So TDS was on the basis of actual sale consideration, not the market value, not the stamp duty value. अब इसमें क्लैरिफाई कर दिया that it shall be 1% of the actual sale consideration or the stamp duty value, whichever is higher. तो अगर मेरी एक्चुअल कंसिडरेशन 80 लाख है, स्टैम्प ड्यूटी वैल्यू 1 करोड़ है, आई विल हैव टू डिडक्ट टैक्स ऑफ 1% ऑन 1 करोड़. ठीक है. एक थोड़ी सी एनॉमली इसमें अभी जो हम फेस कर रहे हैं कि सेक्शन 50C में कहता है कि स्टैम्प ड्यूटी वैल्यू शुड एक्सीड 110% ऑफ द सेल कंसिडरेशन. तो अगर मेरी सेल कंसिडरेशन 60 लाख है और स्टैम्प ड्यूटी वैल्यू 64 लाख है, माय कंसिडरेशन शैल बी डीम्ड टू बी 60 लाख. पर ये नया प्रोविजन आया है, इसमें टीडीएस मुझे 64 लाख पे काटना. वो कहते हैं एक्चुअल सेल कंसिडरेशन और स्टैम्प ड्यूटी वैल्यू व्हिचएवर इज हायर. उसमें 10% की कहीं लीवरेज की बात नहीं करी. तो मेरा टीडीएस कट जाएगा 64 लाख पे, मेरा 26AS में रिफ्लेक्ट होगी सेल कंसिडरेशन 64 लाख की, मैं दिखा रहा हूँ 60 लाख, तो उसमें फिर मिसमैच आएगा. तो ये एक प्रैक्टिकल इशू जो आएगा, दिस हैज टू बी फ्लैग्ड ऑफ टू द डिपार्टमेंट, मे बी दे विल इशू अ clarification on this also. 194R एक नया सेक्शन इंट्रोड्यूस करा गया टीडीएस के लिए, which is in respect of benefits of perquisites provided to a person while carrying on his business or profession. Section 28 clause 4 छोटा IV वो कहता है that if you receive any benefit or any perquisite in the course of carrying on a business or profession, it is deemed to be your income under the head of business and profession. अब उसकी टैक्सेबिलिटी तो एक इशू हो गया. अब इसमें प्रॉब्लम आती है कि अब राजेश अग्रवाल जी प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हैं एज अ चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट, इनके क्लाइंट ने इनको फीस के अलावा कुछ और भी फैसिलिटी दे दी. वो कहते हैं ये ऑफिस आप यूज कर लीजिए, डोंट पे एनी रेंट फॉर दिस. तो वो भी तो एक फैसिलिटी है आपके पास, उसको भी तो टैक्स करना है हमने. तो सेक्शन 28 क्लॉज 4 कहता है कि दिस विल बी टैक्स एज अ परक्विजिट. अब क्वेश्चन ये था हाउ मेनी पीपल आर रिपोर्टिंग दिस. तो लोग इसको रिटर्न में अपने डिस्क्लोज ही नहीं करते थे, एंड द गवर्नमेंट हैड नो मेथड ऑफ फाइंडिंग दिस आउट. तो अब उसको नॉर्मल ट्रेडिशनल मेथड उन्होंने उसके ऊपर टीडीएस लगा दिया कि अगर टीडीएस कटेगा तो रिपोर्ट भी होगा. तो अब ये प्रोविजन डाल दिया दैट द पर्सन हु इज प्रोवाइडिंग दिस फैसिलिटी, द पर्सन हु इज गिविंग यू दिस बेनिफिट ऑफ द परक्विजिट, ही इज रिक्वायर्ड टू डिडक्ट टैक्स ऑफ 10% on the value of the benefit of perquisite provided to the person. अब 10% टैक्स उसको काटना है if the value of the benefit of perquisite exceeds ₹20,000. ठीक है. 10% टैक्स वो काटेगा तो ऑटोमेटिकली आपकी रिपोर्टिंग आ जाएगी. ठीक है. इसके टीडीएस के प्रोविजंस डाले गए 194R में. कुछ छोटी सी टेक्निकल प्रोविजंस और हैं कि किसको टैक्स काटना है, किसको नहीं काटना. आई थिंक वी कैन स्किप दैट, वो आप देख लेना. हाँ, कुछ और खास बात नहीं है. हाँ, 206 AB और एक दूसरा सेक्शन था 206 CCA. इसमें नॉन फाइलर्स ऑफ रिटर्न के लिए, इफ यू हैव नॉट फाइल्ड द रिटर्न फॉर द लास्ट 2 preceding years, the TDS rate was double the normal TDS rate. अब वो 2 साल का प्रोविजन हटाकर उसको 1 साल कर दिया. That means if you have not filed the returns for the preceding year, then these provisions will become applicable. तो 206 AB 206 CCA में ये अब 1 साल का प्रोविजन हमने कर दिया. एक पेनल्टीज के लिए एक नया प्रोविजन और डाला इन्होंने, उसको मैं डिस्कस करता हूँ. एक आपके जो चैरिटेबल ट्रस्ट के ऊपर हम आते हैं, तो आई थिंक और कोई खास बात इसमें बिफोर द चैरिटेबल ट्रस्ट और कोई इश्यूज आप डिस्कस करना चाहेंगे अविनाश जी?
अगर कुछ प्रोसीजरल अमेंडमेंट्स किए हैं. Sir, there are few procedural amendments which is being made by the department, which are welcome amendment. The first amendment which is there is in case of repetitive appeals. So earlier we have a section called 158 AA, which talks about that in case of an SSC, if there is an appeal which is pending before a high court or a Supreme Court, and department is of the view that the question of law which is pending before the Supreme Court or the High Court in the case of the SSC itself is similar, then under that provision, they, after taking an appropriate approval from the Principal Commissioner or a Commissioner of Income Tax, they may opt for a non-filing of appeal in those cases before the tribunal or before the High Court. Now, what they have amended, that 158 AA section, they said that sunset clause is 31st March 2022. After 31st March 2022, that section, no instruction can be passed in that. And they have added a new section called 158 AB. What is this 150 AB? So for example, in my case, in the case of an SSC named Avinash Gupta, if there is a case which is pending before High Court or Supreme Court, and the question of law is similar to what is there in the current appeal which is to be filed by the revenue, or in the case of any other SSC. So let's say there is an appeal of Rajesh Agarwal ji which is pending before the High Court or Supreme Court, and I and the revenue, both department, we both feel that the question of law in the appeal of Rajesh Agarwal ji is similar to that in my case, and we agree to it, then in those cases they can adopt a methodology whereby they will not file the appeal in my case. So earlier it is only in my case, but now they said either in my own case or the case of the SSC itself or any other SSC, provided the question of law is same and SSC as well as the assessing officer both agrees to it, then in that case there is a consortium that will be constituted which consists of principal, chief commissioner or chief commissioner. Earlier it was commissioner, now it is principal, chief commissioner or commissioner, and they will instruct the assessing officer that, sir, this is similar and both are agreed, and you should not do a repetitive appeal. Whatever is the decision of the court in those cases, that will be applicable here. So if the decision of the court is in favor of the assessee, then there is no appeal which is liable to be there. If the decision of the court is in favor of the revenue, then the revenue has to file an appeal before the tribunal within 60 days. Or if it is a case of High Court, then they will file an appeal within 180 days before the High Court. So this is a welcome step, which I feel that this unnecessary litigation by the revenue, not by the SSC, by the revenue may be reduced because of that particular provision. Next provision, last year there is an amendment in the law and there is a new committee which is constituted, which we say as Dispute Resolution Committee, DRC. So we have one DRP, another is DRC, which have been constituted last year. But whatever DRC says, there is no enabling provision for the AO, that in those cases if DRC says to increase the demand or reduce the demand, or how they will give an order giving effect of DRC things. So now the power have been given and an amendment have been proposed in the DRC rule 245 MA, whereby they said that whatever DRC will say, the AO has to pass an order giving effect, order of DRC directions, that has to be there. So this is also a welcome step. Third thing, in case of business reorganization, specifically in case of mergers, what happened, that there is a company A which is going to be merged with company B. There is an appointed date, and on that appointed date, they file a petition before the NCLT or earlier before the High Court. And the court may take 6 months, the court may take 1 year, 2 year, 3 year to actually pass an order of merger or reorganization. During that period, during the appointed date and the date of order is always from the appointed date itself. So if there are certain proceedings which are going on in the hands of the, or in the case of the merged entity, the entity which is going to lose its identity after that order is been passed, and subsequently after the merger order is passed, the department still do the assessment in the name of the earlier entity only. So we have a Supreme Court judgment, we have High Court judgments as well as tribunal judgment which says that department cannot do an assessment in the name of a non-existent entity. Department cannot do an assessment of a dead person. So on these grounds, these orders are being quashed by various tribunals as well as various high courts, and these are all in favor of the revenue. But now they have amended a section 170 and incorporated a new clause 2A, which says that in the case of a business reorganization, which is merger, if a company, there is a difference between an appointed date and the date of order. If the department is doing an assessment in the name of the merged entity, and if the order is also passed in the name of the merged entity, it is deemed to be passed in the name of the successor entity. So एक deeming provision से उन्होंने क्या कर दिया कि उन्होंने ये कहा कि successor entity के नाम पे अब क्या होगा, ये सब वो काम करेंगे. अब इसमें सर एक दूसरा इश्यू आता था. राजेश जी ने अभी रिसेंटली मर्जर कराए और इनका जो मर्जर का ऑर्डर है वो 2 साल बाद आया. अब 2 साल बाद जो ऑर्डर आया उसकी अपॉइंटेड डेट 2 साल पहले थी. अब अपॉइंटेड डेट होने के बाद क्या हुआ, मर्जर अप्रूव हो गया. नाउ द बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स हैज टू बी मर्ज्ड फॉर बोथ द एंटिटी and a consolidated return needs to be filed or needs to be assessment needs to be done on a consolidated basis. अब जो मर्ज एंटिटी हो गई उसके पैन के ऊपर टीडीएस भी है, उसके पैन पे एडवांस टैक्स भी है, उसके पैन पे सेल्फ असेसमेंट टैक्स भी है. अब उस टैक्स को दोनों को मर्ज कैसे करें? If the time period for filing a original return or a revised return is there, then we used to file a revised return or the original return as the case may be. 1 साल में तो हमें मिल जाता था नॉर्मल रिटर्न फाइल करने का टाइम और 1 साल में रिवाइज रिटर्न कर देते थे, बट बियॉन्ड दैट वी डू नॉट हैव दैट टाइम. सो इन दोस केसेस इफ द केस इज अंडर स्क्रूटनी, तो हम स्क्रूटनी में रिवाइज कंप्यूटेशन फाइल करके उसको असेस करा लेते थे, टीडीएस का क्रेडिट ले लेते थे. बट व्हाट विल हैपन इन द केस व्हेन देयर इज नो scrutiny, there is no assessment which is pending in those cases. Now they have incorporated a beautiful amendment. ये बहुत ही जरूरी थी. I have requested for this amendment और मैंने कह के ये काम कराया है. उसमें उन्होंने क्या किया, now they have incorporated a new section called 170 capital A. What is this 170 capital A? That in case of a merger of company, if there is a difference between the appointed date and the order date, then in those cases, the merged entity can file or has to file the return of income, which they said as a modified return. That modified return has to be passed has to be filed with the department within 6 months from the date of issue of merger order in the prescribed form and in the prescribed manner. So it will be a specialized return form stating both the banks, stating both the income taken together, etc., etc. So rules will come, and based on those rules, this new form would be filed with the department in the prescribed manner. That is another welcome amendment, specifically in case of mergers. Next amendment is there in case of IBC. So many of us are working in insolvency and bankruptcy code, and according to that insolvency and bankruptcy code, any company which have gone to the IBC proceeding, all the past assessments, demands, etc. ceases to exist, or the court in those cases will determine at the time the company is out of IBC that how much amount is to be paid to the income tax department. Maybe 0, maybe 10%, maybe 50%, whatever may the case may be, the NCLT will tell us, will give this in the order while approving the company from IBC proceeding. With that order, when we go to the AO will say that, okay, I accept there is an order, but I do not have a power in the Income Tax Act whereby I will implement this order. He can implement the order of the High Court. He can implement the order of any appellate authority of the income tax under the income tax law, but he has no power to implement the order of the NCLT under the Income Tax Act. Now, this power has been given to the assessing officer by incorporating a new section called 156A. By incorporating this section, the power is given that any company, if it is come under the IBC proceeding and there is an NCLT order under the IBC proceeding, then this assessing officer can modify the order, make it either a zero or whatever as per the direction of the order of the court. He can do and modify this particular thing that is allowed. There are two small changes with respect to the international tax that I want to take up here. First is about 263 proceeding. Now the transfer pricing, CIT transfer pricing have given a power to do a 263 of the TPO order. Earlier that power was not there. So a CIT of transfer pricing can do a 263 for the order passed by the transfer pricing officer during the year. So that power is there. That is one. Second, about the faceless transfer pricing scheme. So the deadline was 31st March 2022. They said that by 31st March 2022, they will introduce a faceless transfer pricing regime, which they are not able to do it. So that limit have been extended to 31st March 24. Similarly, faceless DRP, they said that they will do a faceless DRP till 31st March 2022, but that is again deferred to 31st March 2024. Then faceless IT-80, jurisdictionless IT-80 procedure and the faceless, both they said it is the prerogative of the Ministry of Law. According to the Act, this has to be done before 31st March 2022. Again, this will have deferred it for another 2 years, that this will done up to 31st March 2024. So this is amendment number 1 as far as international tax is concerned. Another very, very important amendment have done in case of 195. So what happened in a 195 cases, if there is an agreement or an arrangement whereby tax has to be borne by Indian party. So generally we say it as a net of tax contracts. In case of those transactions, the tax has to be borne by Indian party and foreign party says, I want only my payment. So they said, okay, you pay me $100. Whatever is the tax on this $100, whether applicable, whether not applicable, is the responsibility of the Indian party that they have to pay. And many times Indian party has to pay this amount to the credit of the government. And subsequently to the payment, they have no right to go to the assessing officer and say, sir, this particular transaction is not liable to be taxed in India. Hence, you please see and give my tax back to me. Now a procedure have been changed and an amendment is made in the Act whereby in all cases where the contracts or arrangement is net of tax, meaning thereby tax is borne by the deductor, tax is borne by the Indian party, and they deposit that tax to the Indian party or to the government, and subsequently they say that we believe that these income is not chargeable to tax in India. Hence, they can claim a refund from the assessing officer, of course, international tax assessing officer, and assessing officer has to pass an order, whether allowing that refund or denying that refund. And that order is also appealable. So that is a very, very welcome step, I believe, have done in case of international tax, where in the cases of net of tax contracts, we have these kinds of provision which is available. So I think these are few welcome changes what have come under these Finance Bill 2022. This is all from my side. Now over to Ravi ji, if you want to add anything.
Rajesh, do we have another 10 minutes with us? Shall we continue? Okay. 2 or 3 small amendments before I come to the major amendments regarding the charitable trust. One amendment in cases of imposition of penalties. We have penalty provisions under section 271 AAB, AAC, AAD, where a penalty is imposed in case of search cases, where a penalty is imposed where income is assessed under 115 BBE, and 271 AAD, penalty for falsification of books of accounts, bogus billings. So they all, under all these three sections, penalties are imposed. At present, this power to impose the penalty under all these three provisions is only with the assessing officer. In other cases, penalties can be imposed even by the Commissioner Appeals. So we have amended this provision, enabling the Commissioner Appeals also to levy a penalty on whatever additions have been made by the Commissioner Appeals. So now he can impose a penalty under all these three sections also. A small enhancement in the penalty under 272A, where a penalty at present is 100 rupees per day for certain defaults, not furnishing certain information, not signing the statement secretary, is 100 rupees per day. That was considered to be too less for a deterrent, so that has been increased to 500 rupees per day. A small amendment in section 179. 179 deals with recovery of the tax due from a private limited company from its directors. The heading of this section says recovery of tax from a company in liquidation. So the heading said only liquidation. The body of the section did not mention about liquidation. It covered all cases of recovery of tax from the company. So that lacuna has been now modified. The heading has been changed, and now it relates to recovery of taxes due from a private limited company from its directors in all circumstances. Then coming to the next set of amendments, which is relating to the religious trust. Now, in the memorandum explaining the provisions, we find that about 20 pages, 22 pages to be precise, are devoted to these amendments. I will highlight and try to summarize these amendments for the benefit of our viewers. See, the charitable trusts enjoy exemption under two separate regimes. One is a regime under section 1023C, and another corresponding regime is under section 11, 12, 12AB, and 30. Under both these provisions, the charitable trusts enjoy an exemption of their income, subject of course to certain conditions, application of the income up to 85%, etc. Now, it was found that the provisions of these two limbs, these two categories, are not in consonance. So now what we have done is we have brought parallel provisions in both these limbs. Right? Now, especially under section 1023C, 4 clauses which deal with these trusts. See, earlier clauses deal with national trusts like National Defense Fund, etc. So we are not concerned with that. We are concerned with 1023C clause 4, 5, 6, and 6A, where we have certain notified charitable institutions, notified religious trusts, universities and educations having gross receipts exceeding rupees 5 crores, hospitals, medical institutions having receipts exceeding 5 crores. Now, in respect of these 4 institutions, earlier it provided that they should be approved by a specified authority. Now it has been provided they shall be approved by the principal commissioner. So that authority has been specified in the Act. Secondly, with respect to the religious trusts, etc., who are receiving funds for the maintenance or for the development of certain sites, certain temples, mosques, churches, etc. Now they were receiving donations for the maintenance. There was no specified condition as to how they can use it. So now it has been clarified that whatever amount is received by these institutions towards the repairs, maintenance of a particular monument, that shall be treated as a corpus donation. When I treat it as a corpus donation, it will be totally exempt provided I use it for that purpose. And unless and until I use it, till the time that I use it, I have to keep it invested in the modes prescribed under section 11.5. So now that has been clarified in section 1023C. We have added an explanation there also. In section 11, 12, and 13, particularly in section 11, if you see that if a trust is not able to utilize 85% of its receipts during the year, it has a provision under section 11.2 that you can accumulate the unutilized amount for a period of 5 years. You have to file a form number 10, before the date of filing the return, and whatever is the unutilized amount you can accumulate for a specified purpose for a maximum period of 5 years. If you do not use it within 5 years, it is deemed to be the income of the 6th year. Now we have amended that provision. This will now be deemed to be the income of the 5th year itself. So I must use it within 5 years. If I do not use it in 5 years, I will deem that to be the income of the 5th year. There are also other provisions that if I misutilize this income within the period of 5 years, or I do not keep them invested in more prescribed under 11.5, they will be deemed to be the income of the year in which they are misutilized. Similar provisions did not exist under section 1023C. So now we have added explanations 3, 4, and 5 under section 23C also to give us similar benefit for accumulation of the income there also. And similarly, if it is not utilized within 5 years, it shall be deemed to be the income of the 5th year. Then there was a provision under section 11 that to claim the exemption, the trust must get its accounts audited if the receipts exceed the amount not chargeable to tax. So audit was a mandatory requirement, but correspondingly, there was no requirement of maintaining any books of accounts. So how would an auditor audit the accounts if there are no books of accounts? So now what we have done is we have specified the books of accounts which are required to be maintained. It is now mandatory for the trust to maintain those accounts and also to get them audited. So maintenance of accounts as well as audit, both have been made compulsory. Similar provisions have been inserted under section 1023C also. Right. Then we had a new chapter which was called chapter 12ED, which contained provisions under section 115TD, TE, and TF. These were applicable where a charitable trust has been enjoying exemption, but later it ceases to be charitable, or it merges with an organization which is not charitable. Right? We had seen certain hospitals in Delhi also where they had obtained land from the government at very concessional rates, collected donations, built a hospital, and later these hospitals were sold to commercial organizations. So I have built the assets by utilizing tax refunds, and now I convert it into a non-charitable purpose. So we introduced the section 115TD, which said that as and when this trust ceases to be charitable or merges with an organization which is not charitable, the market value of the assets of that trust shall be deemed to be the income of the trust of the year in which it is no longer charitable. Similar provisions did not exist under 1023. Right? So organizations covered under 1023C were still enjoying that benefit. So now these provisions have been made applicable there also. Another provision we had was under section 139(4)C, where trusts covered under section 11 were required to file the return of income within the time prescribed under 139(4)C. Otherwise, they were not eligible to claim the exemption. This provision again was not there in 1023C. We have inserted an explanation, 20th explanation in 1023C, where these trusts also will have to file their return of income within the time prescribed. Then only they will be eligible for claiming the exemption. Another important penalty has been inserted here. This is a penalty under section 271 AA3, AAE. which says that if a trust or a charitable organization provides any benefit to the person specified under section 13(3), these could be the trustees of the organization, the settler of the organization, the person who has made a substantial contribution to the trust. All these are persons covered under section 13(3), or any of the relatives of these persons. Then the trust can lose its exemption also, or certain cases where it has been held that to that extent it shall be deemed to be the income of the trust. But there was no other deterrent. Now we have imposed a penalty here. We say that if this trust provides any benefit or gives any money to the persons covered under section 13(3), it shall become liable to pay a penalty of 100% of that amount. And if in a subsequent year another default is committed, then the penalty shall be 200% of the amount. So first default, 100% penalty, second default, 200% penalty. So similar provisions again under section 1023C. This will be again a deterrent for persons to utilize the income only for the purposes of the trust, not for the purposes of the specified person. So friends, I think this is all that we want to present before you to bring to your notice the major amendments. I know that we are missing Dr. Girish Ahuja ji. We all pray for the speedy recovery of his brother so that we can all have him amongst us again very soon. We have tried our best to utilize this time that was allotted to us, and I hope we made some sense. Thank you, friends, for a very patient hearing. And Ainash ji has been very helpful, and he has elaborated upon various provisions. And I think we may have time for some questions also.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. अभी क्वेश्चन आंसर अभी वैसे आए हुए क्वेश्चन आंसर बॉक्स में। अविनाश जी आप देख रहे होंगे। गुप्ता जी
पढ़ देंगे सर या
हाँ मैं पढ़ देता हूँ या आप पढ़ोगे? बोलो।
आप पढ़ दो सर।
आप पढ़ दीजिए सर।
देवेंद्र खुराना जी आस्किंग वेदर गोल्ड और शेयर्स और एफसी हेल्ड इन डीमेट अकाउंट विल आल्सो कवर अंडर वर्चुअल एसेट्स?
No.
नहीं। वर्चुअल एसेट्स का कंसेप्ट बिल्कुल डिफरेंट है। दैट इज क्रिप्टोकल एसेट्स, और ये फिजिकल एसेट्स जो है गोल्ड वगैरह, दीज आर नॉट क्रिप्टो करेंसीज, दीज आर नॉट क्रिप्टो एसेट्स।
जी सर,
ये नए प्रोविजंस में बिल्कुल कवर नहीं है
ना, हार्ड फॉर्म में है ना ये।
नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन सर, मनोज चौधरी जी आस्किंग वेदर इंसिडेंस ऑफ बिल arise on transfer price in case of gift to relative both 194S and 115 BBH.
Gift of?
Whether incidence of will arise on transfer price in case of gift to relative.
No, relative तो exempt है 56(2)(10 में. If they fall in the definition of the relative, तो 56(2)(10 apply नहीं करता.
जी सर, जी सर. Next question, Ravi Kumar ji. Wazir X has to deduct TDS on purchase of BTC by Mr. X as per section 194S. Yes. Next question, Deepak Jain. Please explain annuity received by disabled again during whose lifetime / death?
This is the annuity which is the insurance is taken on the parents or the guardians of the dependent person. So this amount of annuity is received for the benefit of the dependent person on the disease, on the death of the person insured who is the guardian. तो गार्डियन की जब डेथ हो जाती है या पेरेंट्स की जब डेथ होती है तभी ये एन्युटी मिलती है, वो एग्जेम्प्ट होती है. अब उसमें ये प्रोविजन डाल दिया गया दैट नॉट ओनली द डेथ ऑफ द पेरेंट्स, इवन इफ इट इज रिसीव्ड आफ्टर द एज ऑफ 60 इयर्स, उसको भी हम इसमें कवर कर लेंगे फॉर डिडक्शन.
राजेश जी आप ऑब्जेक्टिव समझिए. ऑब्जेक्टिव ये था कि जब तक गार्डियन जिंदा है तब तक तो वो टेक केयर कर रहा है. जब गार्जियन की डेथ हो जाएगी तो उस डिसेबल्ड पर्सन का या डिसेबल्ड बच्चे का कौन ध्यान रखेगा? तो ये कहा गया कि आप कोई ऐसा इंश्योरेंस लेते हो जिसमें जो पैसा दे रहा है, पैसा कौन देगा? पेरेंट देगा या गार्डियन देगा? जब उसकी डेथ होने के बाद उसको पैसा मिलेगा तो उसको जो है उन्होंने कहा कि ये हम आपको अलाउ करते हैं टैक्स फ्री. बट अब उन्होंने कहा कि ड्यूरिंग द लाइफ टाइम भी अगर पैसा मिल जाता है, प्रोवाइडेड कि 60 साल से ज्यादा हो गया हो, कौन, पेरेंट एंड और गार्डियन।
Next question, Deepak Jain. Owners to prove source of loan is only for closely held company or for other assessee also?
ये जो प्रोविजन है, दिस प्रोवाइजर अंडर सेक्शन 68, दिस इज एप्लीकेबल ओनली फॉर क्लोजली हेल्ड कंपनी.
Okay, sir. Next question from Surjit Singh. If refund is emerging, even if assessee ignores refund, can he still file updated return?
As long as he is declaring an extra income. तो अगर उसका रिफंड उससे कम हो रहा है, of course he can file.
Okay. Next question, anonymous attendee. What if original return not filed? Can he file updated return?
कर सकते हैं, तो ऑलरेडी कर सकते हैं, तो हमने बताया ही है सर. 140D का टैक्स ही तभी निकालेंगे कि ओरिजिनल रिटर्न फाइल नहीं है तो क्या है तो क्या है.
राजेश, उसका पूरा मेथड एक्सप्लेन किया गया है कि इफ यू हैव नॉट फाइल्ड योर ओरिजिनल रिटर्न, तो उसका टैक्स कैसे कंप्यूट करेंगे, एडिशनल टैक्स कैसे कंप्यूट करेंगे, ऑल दैट हैज बीन प्रिस्क्राइब्ड. तो इसलिए ऑफ कोर्स ही कैन फाइल अ रिटर्न.
Okay, sir. Can updated, next question, same anonymous attendee say, can updated return be filed for assessment year 2021?
सर
हो सकती है सर, जब प्रोविजन इम्प्लीमेंट हो जाएगा तो हो जाएगी.
हाँ, आई
ये प्रोविजन एप्लीकेबल कब से है?
सर ये तो अभी एनेबल हो जाएगा सर, 1 अप्रैल 2022 से हो जाएगा.
22 से.
तो जब 22 से हो जाएगा तो पिछले सालों की जा सकती है सर. The procedural matter.
Okay. Next question. Pradeep Kapoor ji is asking, can an updated return can be filed if notice under section 143(2) has been issued?
सर फिर तो असेसमेंट पेंडिंग हो गई ना, असेसमेंट पेंडिंग होगी तो नहीं कर सकते सर. इसी तरह से 148 का नोटिस आ गया तो भी नहीं कर सकते. 148A के नोटिस के बाद कर सकते हो, बिकॉज 148A इज नॉट असेसमेंट.
Next question, Deepak Jain ji asking, if original ITR was loss of rupees 1 crore, can updated ITR be filed for loss of 50 lakh, benefit to revenue by reduced loss of 50 lakh?
yes it can be. हम लॉस को रिड्यूस कर सकते हैं.
Loss को reduce कर सकते हैं. Yogesh Garg ji asking, original return was for 15 lakh, revised return filed for 20 lakh, can updated return be filed for 18 lakh?
नहीं, if the revised return was 20 lakhs, you cannot reduce it now.
Yes.
Updated return cannot be less than the revised return.
The Nagpur sugar means original return steps into the shoes of original return, then forget about original. Now the return is 20. You cannot file below 20.
Next question, Kohli Saab. For updated return, in case of return already filed, there is increase in income under one head and decrease in income in another head.
Right. Consider the net effect.
Net
अगर
effect.
टोटल इफेक्ट जो है वो इंक्रीज कर रहा है इनकम, तो आप अपडेटेड रिटर्न फाइल कर सकते हैं.
Next question, Praveen Gupta ji. Can loss reduction be filed as updated return? Means original filed loss for 5 lakh और now reduced. ये तो बोल ही दिया. Yes,
हो
okay.
गया.
हाँ. रमेश कुमार आहूजा जी.
लॉस रिडक्शन में.
Loss reduction में yes.
Allowed है sir, allowed है. Loss reduction.
Allowed है. Ramesh Kumar Ahuja ji asking, how the tax audit report will be submitted for the merged accounts with a modified ITR as per new section 170A, where court order is passed after the appointed date. Substantiate in view of the fact that such merged accounts have not been audited, whether TAR on 3CB/3CD.
सर आप चिंता मत करो, उन्होंने लिखा है इन द प्रिस्क्राइब्ड मैनर एंड इन द प्रिस्क्राइब्ड फॉर्म दे विल प्रिस्क्राइब द एंटायर प्रोसेस. सर खाली ये नहीं है, उसके अलावा बहुत सारे इश्यूज होते हैं, तो इसलिए वो एक फॉर्म, मल्टीपल फॉर्म बना के लाएंगे.
संजीव सूटा जी पूछ रहे हैं, इन केस ऑफ टीडीएस ऑन परक्यूजिट्स, हाउ टू अराइव एट द वैल्यू ऑफ परक्यूजिट?
देखिए, परक्यूजिट की वैल्यूएशन तो जो भी मार्केट वैल्यू ऑफ द एसेट गिवन या जो भी मार्केट वैल्यू ऑफ द बेनिफिट गिवन, दैट विल बी टेकन एज द वैल्यू ऑफ दैट बेनिफिट. अगर आपको जैसे मैंने बताया था कि अगर वो रेंट फ्री अकोमोडेशन दी जाती है, तो उसका जो भी मार्केट वैल्यू है, या आपको एक कार दी जाती है, उसकी जो भी मार्केट वैल्यू है, दैट विल बी डीम्ड टू बी द मार्केट.
अच्छा, इस वाले में बिजनेस के लिए, बिजनेस में तो मार्केट वैल्यू.
Next question, Sanjeev Suta ji again. Can updated return be filed to disclose information which has no tax effect, such as disclosure of foreign assets?
No. It must have the effect of disclosing additional income.
नहीं सर, मैं I have a different view.
क्या इसमें क्या आता है?
Sir, if I am, sir, if I am not reducing the income, if I am not, then yes, I can do it.
Okay, sir.
I am
Next
not
question.
reducing anything, huh?
Next question, B.S. Mathurji. Can an updated return be filed for enhanced refund if
नहीं,
mistake
सर, ये
was
तो
in
पहले
original return?
prohibited है। ये पहले प्रोहिबिटेड, लॉ में ही प्रोहिबिटेड है।
नहीं कर सकते।
Next question, anonymous attendee. Long-term loss from shares not declared in assessment year 2021. Can the return be modified now under new law?
नो लॉस तो सर आप क्लेम ही नहीं कर सकते ना सर, यू कैन नॉट डू इट सर। दिस इज बेनिफिशियल टू द रेवेन्यू, जो भी करोगे बेनिफिट उनके बेनिफिट में करो।
Next question, Dinesh Bansalji. If in case I file updated return in this, I add my new income, but this increase my TDS claim and my refund is increased, can I file it?
नहीं कर सकते सर, अगर रिफंड इंक्रीज होगा तो नहीं कर सकते।
Yogesh Badwaji, whether in case of relinquishment deed with consideration in case of family settlement, TDS is required to be deducted on consideration amount?
केस ऑफ
रिलिंक्विशमेंट डीड में तो सर, रिलिंक्विशमेंट डीड में तो अगर कोई पैसे भी मिले हैं तो वो फैमिली विद इन फैमिली मिले होंगे, तो विद इन फैमिली तो वैसे ही टैक्सेबल नहीं है।
नहीं सर, स्टैम्प ड्यूटी तो जाएगी ना।
स्टैम्प ड्यूटी जाएगी सर, पर हो जाएगी सेटलमेंट में इट इज नॉट कंसीडर्ड एज अ ट्रांसफर। इट इज सुप्रीम कोर्ट जजमेंट्स हैं, देयर आर सुप्रीम कोर्ट जजमेंट्स जिसमें कहते हैं कि ट्रांसफर केस ऑफ फैमिली सेटलमेंट इट इज ओनली रीअलाइनमेंट ऑफ योर राइट्स, देयर इज नो ट्रांसफर देयर, इसलिए कैपिटल गेन उसमें नहीं आता।
Okay. Next question, Sanjeev Kapoor is asking. These days, many people take donation for medical treatment oblique emergencies other than for COVID-19 treatment through crowdfunding website like Keto, Milap, etc. Are these donations received by the donee taxable under section 56 to 10?
50,000 से ज्यादा है तो है, या फिर इनको जो पैसे मिल रहे हैं वो एक रजिस्टर्ड 12A की जो ट्रस्ट है उससे मिल, either it has to come from a registered trust, otherwise it is fully taxable.
Okay. Next question, Kamal Kumar Khetanji. Under what condition notice for reassessment under section 148 can be sent beyond 3 years?
उसमें अगर income statement assessment more than 50 lakhs and it is either represented by an asset or expenditure or entries in the books of accounts, तो उस केस में 3 साल से beyond भी जा सकती है। The primary condition, income for each year should be more than 50 lakhs.
Yes. Dr. Barbe Saab, whether provision for disallowance of cess is effective from which date?
2005 से assessment year 2005
Retrospective amendment है।
Next question, Deepak Jain ji. Traders taken for foreign holiday on achieving target would be covered under business perks, benefit subject to 10% TDS. Am I right?
yes.
CS Patro Saab, a trust applied for registration under section 12A and ATG in financial year 2021 and got provisional approval order for 3 years for financial year 21-22. Need to know what is the due date for filing renewal application.
The renewal application for a new trust either from the date on which you commence your activity. तो जैसे ही आपने एक्टिविटीज कमेंस करी उसके 6 महीने के अंदर अप्लाई करना है दोबारा।
Next question, BS Mathur sir. Sir, then how to file rectification under section 154 of IT Act?
For what? 154 किस चीज के लिए करना है?
बस यही लिखा है सर इन्होंने। कोई होगी मिस्टेक सर, कैलकुलेशन मिस्टेक भी हो सकती है, जो सीपीसी से एडिशन आई है वो भी हो सकती है।
तो 4 साल के अंदर कर सकते हैं सर उसको।
ठीक है सर। Next question from anonymous attendee. If assessee had loss from share but not declared for assessment year 2021, can it be amended by showing some additional income for that year by paying tax on that?
सर लेकिन टोटल में एडिशन होना चाहिए ना, जब लॉस आपका एक उसमें लॉस आ गया और दूसरे में एटलीस्ट उतनी इनकम दिखानी पड़ेगी कि एग्रीगेट में नेट में इंक्रीज होगा। सर आपका लॉस है 1 लाख, सर आपका लॉस है 1 लाख रुपए का, आपको मैं 4,000 रुपए इनकम दिखा दे तो नहीं चलेगा। आप अगर आपको 1,04,000 रुपए की इनकम दिखा के दोनों सेटअप करके 4,000 नेट में होंगे तो चल जाएगा।
Next question, Deepak Jain साहब. On your answer of relinquishment, many changes of assets or gifts are between cousins who are not under definition of relative for section 56, will the reply on TDS on these still be valid?
Yes, it is still valid. जो कि फैमिली सेटलमेंट को हम ट्रांसफर ही नहीं मानते, ठीक है। जिसको भी हम फैमिली सेटलमेंट ले रहे हैं, उसका कजन है या मेरा ब्रदर है या चाचा है, कोई भी है, दे ऑलरेडी हैड अ राइट इन दोस एसेट्स। अब हम उनको सिर्फ रीअलाइन कर रहे हैं, मे बी कि उस मकान में नहीं था, मे बी उसको कैश में इंटरेस्ट था, मे बी कुछ और चीज में प्रॉपर्टी में था। तो अब जब हम फैमिली सेटलमेंट बनाते हैं तो ऑल दीज पर्संस आर इन्वॉल्वड इन दैट फैमिली सेटलमेंट।
Next question, Dheeraj Agrawal ji. Whether the person in whose behalf TDS is deducted will include the same as taxable in his return, whether the same will get reflected in the form of 26 AS or AIS, how value would be arrived to be deducted TDS? What would be remedy if there is a dispute between both the parties in the case of amount determined on which TDS has been deducted?
देखिए सर, TDS की लायबिलिटी प्राइमरली डिडक्टर की है, तो he has to determine on what amount the tax has to be deducted. तो वो तो अपने हिसाब से काटेगा, unless and until if there is a dispute, then the deductee can approach the assessing officer, वहां से एक सर्टिफिकेट ले आए, उस सर्टिफिकेट के बेसिस पर ही लोअर डिडक्शन हो सकती है, नहीं तो डिडक्टर अपने हिसाब से जितनी उसकी लायबिलिटी बनती है वो काटेगा।
Last question, BS Mathur Saab. Sir, if income is enhanced but refund is more on revised return, can we file revised return?
रिवाइज रिटर्न तो हो सकती है, अपडेटेड रिटर्न नहीं फाइल
अपडेटेड रिटर्न नहीं हो सकती, रिवाइज रिटर्न हो सकती है।
एग्जांपल दिया तो था कि पहले ओरिजिनल में 30% दिया, बाद में 20 कर दिया, इनकम सेम है, पर क्योंकि रिफंड बढ़ जाएगा तो नहीं हो सकती सर।
Sir, one more question. Sir, one more question. In case of cryptocurrency, under what head of income you will be showing that?
ये अभी तक नहीं है, this has to be under income from others.
सर स्पेशलाइज सेक्शन डाला है तो अदर सोर्सेज में
जाएगी। This cannot be a capital gain, because अगर कैपिटल गेन होता तो वो डिफाइन करते हैं whether it's long term, it is short term capital gain, ट्रांसफर की डेफिनेशन देते, उन्होंने इसको नहीं इंक्लूड करा है। So
Can this be a business?
under the head of income from
other sources में आएगा सर। all special rate incomes are taxable under other sources.
Income from other sources.
कैपिटल गेन में स्पेशल रूट होता है।
सर इन केस ऑफ क्रिप्टो करेंसी, जैसे ये वजीर एक्स की जगह बिनांस वगैरह से स्टॉक एक्सचेंज से डील कर रहे हैं, तो उसमें भी टीडीएस कटेगा फिर?
हाँ सर, अगर 10,000 रुपए से ज्यादा का आपको मिला है या ये जो स्टॉक एक्सचेंज, ये तो सब कंपनियां हैं, तो 10,000 से ऊपर अगर आपको पैसे देंगे तो टीडीएस काट के।
बट सर बिनांस जो है वो इंडियन नहीं है, वो इट्स फॉरेन है, वो
फॉरेन में टीडीएस प्रोविजन नहीं लगेगा।
नहीं, एनी पर्सन मेकिंग पेमेंट टू अ रेजिडेंट, तो एनी पर्सन में वो आ जाएगी।
फिर आपको देखना पड़ेगा कि इंडिया में एजेंट किसका है,
उनका पी है नहीं है, वो सब काट के देंगे सब।
बना लेंगे उसका एजेंट।
सर वो इशू, टेक्निकल इशू तो आएंगे अभी उसके अंदर।
सर अभी तो ये भी इशू है कि सर एक
जीएसटी ऑन क्रिप्टो करेंसी, सर जीएसटी का भी क्लियर नहीं हुआ ना अभी उसके ऊपर।
नहीं विपिन जी, एक और इशू है कि क्रिप्टो करेंसी का एक्सचेंज जो है वो यूएस में है, और जो मैं खरीद रहा हूँ वो बाहर ही खरीद रहा हूँ, तो डीटीए बिटवीन इंडिया यूएस लगेगा, तो डीटीए इश्यूज आर होगा, तो इंटरनेशनली देयर वुड बी मेनी इश्यूज। अभी तो पहले उन्होंने एक लेवल पे ये कर दिया कि भाई इंडिया वाले तो पकड़ लो पहले,
बेसिकली लीगलाइज कर दिया उन्होंने आज इसको।
अभी नहीं किया
लीगलाइज नहीं किया अभी,
लीगलाइज
सर टैक्स दे दो बस हमें, तो बाकी बाद में देखेंगे।
सर एक श्रीवास्तव जी से रिक्वेस्ट है कि सर वो अपना क्वेश्चन पूछे।
नहीं, मेरा क्वेश्चन जो था वो पार्टली इन्होंने आंसर हो गया है। इनफैक्ट इट वाज ओनली अगर जो लॉस रिटर्न है और वो फाइल कर रहे हैं और द लॉस इज रिड्यूस्ड,
अब वो तो हुई है
नहीं, इट कैन नो अपडेटेड रिटर्न, लॉस रिड्यूस नहीं कर सकते आप।
लॉस रिड्यूस करेंगे तो हो गया ना, लॉस
अपडेटेड। हाँ, रिड्यूस कर रहे हैं, लॉस को रिड्यूस कर रहे हैं,
बिकॉज़ ऑलरेडी ये लॉस रिटर्न,
हां
हम उसको सिर्फ लॉस को रिड्यूस कर रहे हैं, इट इज नॉट रिजल्टिंग इनटू एनी रिफंड एंड ऑल।
सर अब इसके लिए कोई रूल रेगुलेशन आएंगे, लेट अस वेट फॉर द रूल रेगुलेशन। प्राइमा फेसाई तो सर उनको फायदा है ना लॉस रिड्यूस करने में, लॉस रिडक्शन इज एनहांसमेंट ऑफ इनकम ओनली।
But the continue query in my mind that the reduced amount of the loss, whether it is liable for additional tax.
ये तो सर अभी रूल्स आएंगे तो पता चलेगा।
No, Nitish, I think the tax, there will be no tax payable.
No, originally, Srivastava, if you remember, originally under the income tax had one provision of 143(1)(a).
That is the additional income concept in India 1989 and 90. So that is the additional income tax was there. In that line, there may be the tax liability on the reduced amount of the loss.
So, sir, one possibility is that you cannot file a loss return. You cannot decrease the loss also, because it specifically says the provision of this subsection shall not apply if the updated return is a loss return. Whether the loss is reduced also. So according to one interpretation might be that if you have even 1 rupee loss, you cannot file the updated return. And another liberal interpretation is that you cannot file a prima facie loss return, but a reduction in loss is enhancement of income. So let the board clarify this, because when we are reducing the loss, it is in the favor of revenue. They should allow it.
It may arise. It can arise on account of, say, difference in depreciation allowable.
Take care, sir.
There is the additional tax. तो कहते हैं अगर आपने अपडेट रिटर्न भी करी और वो टैक्स नहीं पे कर रहे, then what is the fun of filing the update?
है ना सर, सर there are many incomes जिन पे 30% टैक्स कट गया. मान लीजिए सर उसकी हमारी हॉर्स रेस की इनकम है, टीडीएस कटा हुआ है 30% और इनकम, बट इनकम नहीं दिखाई, तो उसको तो हमारा जो है एडिशनल टैक्स लगना ही नहीं है उसमें. हाँ नहीं, लॉस की नहीं हो रही, बट टैक्स भी तो नहीं मिल रहा सरकार को.
टैक्स नहीं मिल रहा.
टैक्स मिलेगा नहीं, 25% भी नहीं मिलेगा, 50%, बट अल्टीमेटली क्या होगा कि असेसमेंट बच जाएगी.
Avinash ji, I think इसमें ना post budget में हमें we must get something that it should should be one way only. It should be two way. Genuine cases should be covered under updated return.
Yes, sir. I request कि आप भी जो है आपके suggestions उसको forward करिए. That we can consolidate with that, present it.
Let us take it as a part of a post budget memorandum.
आज मेल आ गई है सर पोस्ट बजट के लिए इंस्टीट्यूट से.
Yes.
सर ये क्रिप्टो को सर इन्होंने फॉरेन एसेट तो ट्रीट नहीं किया इसको कहीं?
नहीं, अभी नहीं किया.
अदरवाइज दैट हैज टू बी रिपोर्टेड इन द रिटर्न एवरी टाइम.
हमें ऐसा कुछ क्लैरिफाई नहीं करा इसको कि दिस इज अ फॉरेन एसेट.
इट हैज नॉट बीन डिक्लेयर्ड ना.
उसके बारे में कोई लीगल फ्रेमवर्क अभी तक नहीं
है. अभी फ्रेमवर्क नहीं है.
साहब,
थैंक यू सर. कोई एनी क्वेश्चन मेंबर से रिक्वेस्ट? देयर इज एनी क्वेश्चन? जरा एक क्वेश्चन आया है कुलीन पाठक साहब, कैन वी कॉल दिस अपडेटेड रिटर्न एज एक्सटेंडेड विवाद से विवाद विश्वास स्कीम?
नो.
अग्रवाल जी, हमें अगला सेशन लेना है प्लीज. 7 बजे का सेशन है.
Okay sir, thank you very much, and I request Rajesh Kumar Jain ji kindly present a vote of thanks, sir.
So it's my honor to present a vote of thanks for my honorable brother, Ravi Gupta ji and Ainash Gupta ji. Both are very learned, and today's session has been very educative. Though our Guruji is not there, and we are praying for the early recovery of his brother, and then we hope that he will join us on some other occasion very shortly. And whatever knowledge we have gained from our brother Ravi Gupta ji and Ainash Gupta ji, it is commendable, and he is both of them have replied to all the questions very lucidly, very comfortably. And it is surprising that most of us have raised the questions only relating to the cryptocurrency and the additional tax to be paid on the return, updated return. The two observations which I will try to make on the this return, that one is that if we recalculate the tax, that not only the additional tax, but we have to pay the additional interest also, 25% markup. It is not only the tax, but the interest also and other things also. That is, and the second thing was, the one question was regarding the loss with the addition of certain income in some other head. So according to me, if the loss is there on the shares, then that is generally carry forward. And net income increased. So when the net income, the taxable income increased, definitely the additional tax will be there. Probably we can file it. we can take the benefit of that. So that is a question of, when the guidelines will come or the rules will come, then we have to study in that. So with these words, I'm thankful to both the, learned speakers of the day. They are all respected and they're always welcome. We look forward for the further, presence of our Guruji in the very short time. Thank you very much, sir. So nice of you, all the panelists also, and all those who have joined us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. This session. Everybody has been very, very attentive to all the discussion. Thank you very much. And to Rajesh Agarwal ji also for giving me the opportunity.
Mercedes
session very, very.
On behalf of all India Western Zone.
Thank you, Rajesh ji.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ravi ji. Thank you, Avinash.
Rajesh Agrawal ji, Vipin Verma ji, Rajesh Kumar Jain ji, Sunil Damija ji.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
All the seniors. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, good night.
Good night, sir.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh Agrawal ji. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
To all, every participant.
All participants from all the corners, Western Zone, Northern Zone.
Yes. Definitely, everybody has joined us.
It's a pan India. Thank you.
Pan India, all over India.
Srivastav ji, thank you very much.
Thank you.
On behalf of
Welcome,
Western Zone.
Videsh. We look forward to your participation in
Thank
future
you very
programs
much.
also.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thanks a lot.
for
Thank
organizing
you,
this.
Chaudhary Saab. Thank you.
ठीक है राजेश जी, थैंक यू, राधे राधे।
राधे राधे प्रभु जी,
Radhe,
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 Radhe.
Radhe.
राधे 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 राधे।